Thank you so much, Molly, for having our child. I'm so happy I could have Tim's baby. I can't wait for us to live together as a family of 3. Molly looked up at Tim with adoration. Although she came to celebrate the joyous occasion of giving birth to the beloved Molly, it seems there was a shocking betrayal. I will never forgive this, I muttered to myself in a voice so low that the 2 in the hospital room couldn't hear. Then, I burst open the door of the room. Tim's face was filled with astonishment upon noticing my presence. Nora! Why are you here? There's a reason for this. Tim was clearly flustered. However, Molly was smirking at an angle Tim couldn't see. Surely, she had intentionally called me to this scene. I decided to say with a forced smile to both of them. Congratulations. The baby is adorable. And with that, I left the room. I won't let Molly have her way. I was determined for revenge and immediately set into action. I am Nora. This year, I turned 36. I work in sales at a major life insurance company. It's mostly women around, and the incentives are substantial. Hard work every day leads to sales performance, and it was the perfect job for me. And I have one best friend. That's Molly. We became friends in college. Molly was the cutest girl. She had her hair curled inward and dressed like a lady. That's why she was very popular among men, and sometimes she was even called out for dates. Molly was good at flattering men. When Molly looked up and asked for something, most men would give in. Often, she got a smart friend to let her copy their lecture notes. Thanks to that, she managed to keep up good grades, which I envied. I, on the other hand, was not popular at all. I never had a boyfriend, nor have I ever been on a date. I preferred casual clothes like jeans and hoodies. The reason why Molly and I, who are complete opposites, became friends was due to a certain incident. It was during a lecture. The lecture involved making groups among students. As everyone else quickly formed groups, Molly was left sitting alone. Because she didn't have any friends at that time. Thus, she couldn't find a partner. Molly looked somewhat uncomfortable. That's when I asked her, "Want to partner up?" Molly looked at me hesitantly. "Are you sure you want to be with me?" "Of course," I answered with a smile. From there, Molly and I became close and spent a lot of time together. For me, who didn't have many friends, Molly was like a best friend. Despite concerns from a few friends, I chose to continue being friends with Molly. Although it seemed Molly occasionally had trouble with men, she treated me just fine. After graduating from college, we both became busy and our communication decreased. However, the fact that we are important friends hasn't changed. I want to cherish that going forward. I met my husband, Tim, after I started working. The meeting was through an acquaintance's introduction. Worried about my lack of encounters, the acquaintance hosted a dinner party. By chance, Tim sat next to me at the party. Tim talked to me in a friendly manner. For me, who had little interaction with men before, this was very refreshing. After the dinner party ended, Tim approached me. "Nora, I thought you were the cutest. Would you mind if we exchanged contact information?" Tim said, smiling. No one had ever said such things to me before. Men in my college days always cared only about Molly. I was like air to them. With Tim, I felt he saw me as an individual. Believing this, I responded, "Yes. Of course." After that, we went on several dates and started dating. About a year into our relationship, Tim proposed to me. I was convinced that I could be happy with Tim. And now, 4 years into our marriage, life with Tim is going smoothly. I continued working even after marriage at Tim's request. "Could you work until we have a child? I'd like to save up a bit for our future together." "Of course. I'll do my best." I thought Tim's request was only reasonable, and I've been working hard at my current job. And just recently, we bought a new house. We had been renting an apartment right after getting married, but a property close to our parents' house came on the market. The 35-year mortgage is tough, but I'm thrilled we have our own home. Our married life seems smooth sailing, but there's one concern. We haven't been able to conceive. Even after 4 years of marriage, we've been unable to have a child. Many families live in our neighborhood, and I often see babies around. Initially, Tim was encouraging, but lately, he hasn't said much. He probably doesn't want to get my hopes up unnecessarily. Thinking this, my heart feels a bit heavy. One day, while checking my social media as usual, I received a direct message. It was from Molly. She wanted to catch up after a long time. Feeling nostalgic and happy, I replied. Molly seems to be living at her parents' home now. And coincidentally, we found out that her parents' house and mine are close, so we decided she would come over to my place on the promised Sunday. It's been a while, Nora. Your new house is lovely. Molly greeted me with a smile as soon as she arrived. Thanks. Let me introduce you. This is my husband, Tim. I introduced Tim, who was next to me, to Molly. I had already told Molly about my marriage beforehand. Wow, what a wonderful husband. Nice to meet you, I'm Nora's best friend, Molly. Molly introduced herself with a bright smile. Then, Tim's cheeks turned a bit red. Nora has such a cute friend. You must be really popular, right? Tim talked to Molly with a grin. After that, the three of us chatted pleasantly. Then, Molly made a suggestion. How about we start a group chat for the three of us? That way, we can keep in touch easily. I really enjoyed talking with Tim, what do you think? Molly was confident, as if it was a brilliant idea. Yeah. I felt a bit troubled. I wasn't sure about Tim's feelings, and it might be awkward for him. As I was pondering what to say, Tim leaned in. That sounds great. I'd love to talk more with Molly. Tim was smiling cheerfully. And so, we decided to start a group chat among the three of us. I was concerned about Tim being so enthusiastic, but maybe he was just trying to be considerate, knowing I don't have many friends. I decided not to worry about Tim's reaction. However, we hardly exchanged messages in the group chat. Maybe Molly is busy too. I didn't think much of it and carried on. Recently, something has been bothering me. Tim's return time from work has become extremely late. Until now, he would be home by 9 p.m. at the latest. But lately, he often comes home around 2 a.m. Sometimes, he even stays out until morning. He also started going out more on weekends, and I saw him less and less. This is definitely strange. I decided to talk to Tim when he was at home. Tim, can I talk to you for a sec? Sure, what's up? Tim seemed normal, as always. Wondering if I was worrying too much, I asked him. You've been coming home late recently, haven't you? I was wondering if something was up. Then, Tim laughed and explained. Yeah, I've been assigned as the leader of a new project. It's a pretty big project with a tight deadline. I've been glued to the computer working on it. Hearing Tim's response made me feel relieved. He answered right away without any signs of being upset. I decided to trust Tim. I see. Don't overdo it, okay? Tim smiled, looking relieved. Thanks. The project should be finished by next month. I think I'll be back to my usual return time then. Tim said, patting my head. However, even after a month, Tim didn't return home early. If anything, he spent even less time at home. I thought things would go back to normal. My heart was restless. Then, a few months later, as my relationship with Tim grew colder, Molly brought some happy news. It happened one evening after work. I saw a missed call on my smartphone. Looking at the caller ID, I muttered to myself. It's from Molly. I found it unusual to get a call from Molly and called her back right away. Luckily, Molly picked up immediately. Nora? Sorry, I haven't been in touch much. How have you been? Hearing Molly's usual cheerful voice was comforting. Tim's behavior has been odd lately. Carrying this worry alone has been hard. I discussed Tim's current state with Molly. Molly listened empathetically. And after I finished talking, Molly cheerfully said, "Nora, you've had it tough. Thanks for telling me. I'm here for you to talk to any time." I felt happy at Molly's kindness. "Molly, thank you." Then, I asked something that had been on my mind. "By the way, what was the call from you about?" It's rare for Molly to contact me. When I asked, Molly hesitated. "This is hard to say, but I'm pregnant." "Really? Congratulations!" I was truly happy about Molly's pregnancy. I honestly felt joy for my best friend Molly's pregnancy. Deep down, I want a baby too. So, while I congratulated her, part of me felt a pang of sadness. "Thank you. I'll let you know when I give birth. Come celebrate in the hospital." Molly seemed happy. And after that, we had some light conversation before hanging up. After the call, tears started rolling down my face. Molly was going to have a baby. But there was no sign of one coming to me despite my wishes. And the relationship with Tim, who was supposed to become a father, was cooling down. Indeed, there was no sign of Tim coming home today. Eventually, I spent the whole day crying alone. Some time passed, and I got a message from Molly. "I gave birth to the baby. Please come and see. I want you to celebrate, Nora." Congratulations, Molly. After receiving the call, I rushed to the maternity ward of the hospital where Molly was admitted. When I arrived at the hospital room Molly had told me about, the door was slightly open. I peeked into the room through the gap in the door to see if Molly was inside. That's when I saw a shocking scene. "Why is Tim here?" I muttered quietly to myself. For some reason, Tim was standing right next to the bed where Molly was sitting. And then Tim said something unexpected. "Molly, thank you so much for having our child," Tim said, tears in his eyes. "I'm happy I could have Tim's baby. I can't wait for the three of us to live together as a family." Molly looked up at Tim adoringly. "Of course. There's no child between Nora and me. I'll divorce her right away and be with you." "Really? Thank you, Tim. I love you." Molly spoke to Tim happily. I just glared at them in silence. I came to celebrate Molly's childbirth, only to find such a shocking betrayal. "I will never forgive this," I muttered quietly enough that the two in the room couldn't hear. Then I flung open the door of the room. Tim's face was filled with astonishment upon noticing my presence. And he was clearly flustered. "Nora! Why are you here?" "No, there's an explanation for this." Tim was clearly panicking, thinking about how to cover up the conversation I had just overheard. It was hard to believe this was the same person who confidently declared divorce a moment ago. I glared at Tim. And I stared sharply at Molly. "Nora. I'm sorry." Molly apologized to me timidly. However, Molly smirked at an angle Tim couldn't see. As if to say she had one. Surely, she had intentionally called me to this scene. I never thought I would be betrayed in such a way by a friend I believed to be close. Such an infuriating woman. I deliberately said with a smile to both of them. "Congratulations. The baby is adorable. You two should live happily together." "Huh?" Ignoring the stunned Tim, I said, "Well, I have things to do. So, I'll be leaving now." And left the room. I won't let Molly have her way. I was determined for revenge and immediately set into action. I went straight home. I packed only my belongings and immediately called a handyman service. Then, I made a bold request to the handyman who arrived. "Please dispose of everything here right now," I said, asking them to throw away Tim's belongings. My belongings fit into just one suitcase. Only valuable items and clothes, that's all. The furniture and appliances were purchased by Tim. I had agreed to pay back the mortgage on the house in my name in exchange for Tim buying the furniture and appliances. So, they were all unnecessary for me. The disposal cost was quite high, but I planned to bill Tim and Molly for it later. Then, I contacted a real estate agency and requested an immediate buyback to sell the house and land. Fortunately, the house was fairly new with little degradation. Plus, it was close to the station and convenient. Therefore, the purchase price was better than expected. I was worried because there was still a lot of mortgage left, but it seems I could offset it to some extent. Thanks to the handyman service, the inside of the house was emptied. Tape was put up outside to prevent trespassing. A for sale sign from the real estate agency was also placed. It was no longer my house. I felt a bit sad, but I just took my suitcase and went back to my parents' house. And 5 days later, it was about time for Molly to be discharged from the hospital. As I was thinking about it, my smartphone received multiple calls. The caller was Tim. Despite ignoring it, he kept calling. Hello. I reluctantly answered the phone. Nora? Where are you now? Tim sounded panicked as he spoke. I told him firmly. It doesn't matter where I am, right? You're only interested in Molly and the baby. You are hardly ever at home anyway. Perhaps because I spoke the truth, Tim was at a loss for words. But thinking that staying silent wouldn't progress the conversation, Tim began to speak hesitantly. Molly was discharged with the baby, so I came back home only to find it turned into a house for sale. I was planning to live here. What's going on? I was half amazed that he only noticed now. Plus, it seemed Tim intended to bring Molly and the baby to the house in my name. It was too ridiculous and appalling. At that moment, something piqued my curiosity. Where have you been until now? I would have expected him to call sooner. Yet, he only called today. That's way too late. Tim hesitantly answered. At a hotel. According to him, he stayed near the hospital all this time. For Molly after childbirth. Molly's hospital room allowed for mother and child to stay together, spending most of the time with the baby until discharge. But taking care of a baby right after birth is hard. So, Tim decided to help with the care during visiting hours. I was surprised to hear Tim's story. You still had paid leave left? I thought you'd have used it up by now. Tim always used up his paid leave as soon as he got it. Therefore, I was surprised that Tim still had any paid leave left. Then, Tim dropped a bombshell. Actually, I took paternity leave. What? I was dumbfounded upon hearing that. As I suspected, Tim had no paid leave left. So, he lied to his company to take paternity leave. Paternity leave? For a child with your affair partner, you actually applied for it? If it were for my childbirth, taking paternity leave would have been understandable. But the other party was Molly. It's unheard of to take paternity leave for the childbirth of an affair partner. It was beyond unreasonable. Then Molly, who seemed to be with him, retorted. It's fine because we're going to be a real family soon. Besides, we planned to kick Nora out and live in that house. Why did this happen? Molly complained over the phone. My child-rearing plan is ruined. She said something nonsensical. Molly planned to take the house and Tim from me and live a comfortable life. Truly appalling to listen to. I sighed deeply and said, the house was in my name. If Tim and I aren't continuing our marital life, there's no need for me to pay for the mortgage, right? That's why I sold it to a real estate company, I explained, leaving Molly speechless. What? Then where are we supposed to live? I already told everyone we'd move there. Molly sounded slightly panicked. I thought I could take everything from Nora. This is terrible. She tried to shift the blame to me. Tim was also perplexed. Between Molly's hospital fees and staying at the hotel, all our savings are gone. We hardly had any savings to begin with. He mumbled. Blaming their mistakes on me was just wrong. I made it clear. I don't care about your affair or your circumstances. Plus, the sale contract is already finalized, so if you enter the house without permission, it's trespassing. What? Tim was speechless at my explanation. He probably hadn't thought it through that far. Molly seemed to be pressing Tim. "What are we going to do, Tim? We have a baby, we can't just sleep outside?" From Molly's tone, it was clear she was panicking. I could hear the baby crying over the phone. It must have been quite a scene. Amidst this, I remembered something. So, I kindly informed them. "Oh, by the way, I disposed of all Tim's belongings." "What?" Tim sounded as if he couldn't comprehend. He must be unable to accept reality. I explained politely to Tim. "The house sale meant your stuff was in the way. Plus, I don't need furniture or appliances bought by someone who cheated on me, and of course, I'll be demanding the disposal cost from you," I said, and Tim fell silent. Taking advantage of Tim's silence, I continued. "You should be hearing from the lawyer, so don't run away." Then Molly snapped at my statement. "What? Why do I have to pay? We just had a baby, and we're going to have a lot of expenses." Molly's attitude was one of complete disbelief. She lashed out at me, "Just because Tim broke up with you? You're ugly, not just in looks but in your heart too." This must be Molly's true nature. From the start, she never thought of me as a friend. I was just a convenient presence for her. But I wasn't going to just take it lying down. I explained firmly to Molly. "Molly, let me make this clear. What you did is a clear case of infidelity, and it's despicable. You went after a married man, so at least take responsibility financially." "Ugh." Molly gritted her teeth in frustration. I could even hear the grinding of her teeth over the phone. She must have been really upset. Molly, who had looked down on me in secret. Now the tables have turned, it was inevitable. And then there's Tim, another enemy. Tim didn't seem fully convinced either. "I'm completely out of money." He said something like that. "The divorce between me and Tim is finalized. If you're not satisfied, could you go through a lawyer?" I said to Tim in a matter-of-fact tone. "Lawyer? I'm just going to be manipulated," Tim muttered grumblingly. Then, Tim started saying something outrageous. "There was no child born between Nora and me. You have a job, so you'll be fine even if we divorce, right? Molly gave birth to my child. Are you a demon to corner us like this?" Tim was deflecting, completely ignoring his own infidelity. It was Tim who had said he wanted me to work until we had a child. And now, he's bringing up my job in this situation. It wasn't like I didn't want to get pregnant. I was frustrated beyond belief. Molly was no better, trying to lord her childbirth over me. Indeed, Nora didn't get pregnant, right? If it weren't for me, Tim would have been childless forever. So, Nora should be crying and thanking me. She said that to me without any hesitation. Excuse me? I was irritated by Molly's words. Why should I be thankful when it's Molly and Tim who did wrong? Truly, Molly and Tim are geniuses at irritating people. They must be two of a kind. Digging deep into someone's wounds. I sighed heavily. I couldn't let Molly and Tim win this. I spoke calmly. "I've already hired a private investigator. We have enough evidence of Molly and Tim's affair. If you want to argue further, we'll see you in court." As soon as I mentioned court, Tim and Molly started panicking. "Court? If my company finds out, it'll be a disaster. You can't do that, right? We don't have time for a court case with a baby. Nora, you're just jealous because I had a baby." Such a narrow-minded person. The tirade from Tim and Molly continued. Thinking these were the husband and best friend I had cherished made me sad. But I calmed myself and spoke to them calmly. "Anyway, the divorce is settled. Just wait for the notice from the lawyer." I was about to hang up after saying that when I suddenly remembered something. "By the way, is the baby really Tim's?" "What do you mean?" Tim's response was baffled. He must trust Molly completely. Tim was head over heels for Molly. So, I don't think he's in a position to make a rational judgment. I just said what I was thinking. Because it's only been about 7 months since Molly first came over, right? The timing doesn't add up. You and Molly met for the first time that day, didn't you? When I asked, Tim said, yeah, but. Molly, thinking it was bad, cut into our conversation. Tim, we were talking about other things, right? We have to do something about that. She spoke to Tim. Her tone was clearly panicked. I thought so and informed them with a sense of conviction. If the baby's due date isn't significantly off, then it might not be Tim's child, right? Molly has always been surrounded by men, I said, and chuckled. Unless Molly had a very premature birth, it's almost impossible for the baby to be Tim's. I couldn't help but think how Tim could believe it was his child. No way! Tim's voice was clearly trembling. He seemed to have realized the irreversible mistake he had made. And then, with a voice turned pale, Tim confronted Molly. Molly! What's all this about? This baby is really mine, right? But Molly remained silent. Tim was questioning Molly. If you look closely, the baby's eyebrows are very distinct, but both you and I have thin eyebrows, right? Explain properly. I chuckled to myself. Molly's child couldn't possibly be Tim's. There's no way a future where the two of them are happily married would come to be. Leaving them as is, they're probably headed for ruin. I gently pressed the end call button. Eventually, the divorce between me and Tim was finalized. But it was quite a struggle to get there. Tim didn't want to agree to the divorce. No wonder. He was supposed to divorce me and remarry Molly, but that became impossible. The baby born to Molly turned out not to be Tim's after a paternity test. Upon closer inspection, Tim noticed several facial features that didn't resemble either of them. And later, it was revealed that Molly had been cheating with various men simultaneously. Molly had a history of infidelity, having been divorced by her ex-husband for that reason and returning to her parents' home. She had hardly ever been home, spending her nights out. Molly's parents were suspicious of her jobless, partying lifestyle, but couldn't kick her out as she hadn't caused any major problems until now. That probably made Molly even more brazen. She became even more devoted to her social life. Soon after, Molly's pregnancy was discovered, but naturally, the father was unknown. So, Molly chose Tim, who had a decent job. Among her other affair partners who were freelancers or worked for small companies with low salaries. They all looked good, which made them suitable for her flings. But with such men, a comfortable married life was out of the question. Hence, she targeted Tim. Molly planned to kick me out and live luxuriously off Tim's income. However, her plan failed when it was revealed the baby wasn't Tim's, leading to their separation. Moreover, I heard that among Molly's affair partners, there were other married men as well. Her parents were furious over this incident and disowned her. And then, they supposedly kicked Molly out of the house. Given Molly's past behavior, this outcome was inevitable. Molly's child is being raised by her parents. Probably because they knew Molly couldn't do it. Molly's parents will surely face a lot of hardship from now on, but I'm glad that the baby won't have to suffer. Molly has been missing since being kicked out of her home. The future of a woman in her late 30s without a home or job is easy to imagine. She's likely in a difficult situation. But it's all due to her own actions. I hope she reflects on them. As for Tim, after our divorce, he was fired from his job. The reason was the discovery of his fraudulent paternity leave. Taken to accompany Molly during her childbirth, an obviously unacceptable act. He had taken leave under the pretense of my childbirth. But with our divorce and the revelation that I wasn't pregnant, his lie was exposed to his company. After being reprimanded by his company, Tim had no choice but to explain the situation. He received quite a scolding and, it seems, was fired. I knew about this because Tim contacted me. I got a call from a payphone on my smartphone, and it was Tim. I tried to hang up immediately, but Tim, crying, begged me to listen. Reluctantly, I heard him out and learned what had happened. Through tears, Tim pleaded with me. Please, give me another chance. I've been fired, and I have nowhere to live. You're all I have left, Nora. Despite his tears, his words didn't touch my heart. After all, Tim was the reason for our divorce. I sighed heavily and said, I'm really fulfilled right now. There's absolutely no way I would remarry you, Tim. After telling the sobbing Tim not to call me again, I hung up. Then I went straight to the mobile carrier and changed my phone number. I probably won't have anything to do with Tim ever again. A year and a half has passed since then. I'm living very happily now. That's because I've found someone important to me. In fact, I remarried after going through matchmaking. Determined to be happier than Molly and Tim. And I married a man 3 years older than me, who is calm and works in accounting. He's serious by nature. Compared to Tim, he might look plain, but his faithful demeanor left a good impression. After dating for about half a year, my husband and I got married. But that's not the only reason I'm happy. I'm pregnant with a long-awaited baby. We don't know the baby's gender yet, but my husband and I are counting down the days until the due date. I remember crying out of frustration when I found out about Molly's pregnancy. Now, those events feel incredibly nostalgic. Marriage and childbirth aren't the finish line. I think that's where everything starts. I'm happy I can start this journey with my kind husband. I'm looking forward to living happily with my husband and our soon-to-be-born child. Hello. Where are you right now? I'm on my way to a job interview. You withdrew money from my account, didn't you? The money I had saved up is gone. What's going on? I needed the money. I was planning to pay you back once I got a job, so I didn't say anything. Don't joke with me. This is nothing short of theft. Have you lost the ability to distinguish right from wrong? I'm not saying I won't pay you back, so there's no need to freak out, okay? I told you I'd pay you back once I start earning money from a job. Don't you understand what I'm saying? My husband, who quit his job right after we got married and spent his days gambling. He had been using my savings. I was at my wit's end with my husband's defiance and hung up the phone. After that, we didn't speak for a week. One day, after working late, I came home at 11 p.m. As I approached our house, I saw the lights on. I wished he had gone to bed earlier. As I was about to enter the house. Ma'am, you shouldn't go inside right now. Oh. No. Why shouldn't I go inside, huh? It's not just your husband inside. He's borrowed money, you know. Actually, about that. Our neighbor, who had been lying in wait for me. I was surprised since we had never spoken before, but his next words left me speechless. Judging it too dangerous to enter, I decided. My name is Sally, and I currently work in an office at a small to medium-sized company, living alone. When I was in high school, my mother fell ill, and I started working right after graduating from high school. It was a tough decision for me at the time since going to college was not an option due to our family's financial situation. However, I was grateful to my mother, who raised me by herself, and I felt I had to work hard for her sake. Oh hi, I'll be heading out now. If you'd like, take this with you. You're going to the hospital to see your mom, right? Are these pastries? Here, I heard your mom is hospitalized, and I thought she might like these. Actually, a client brought it as a gift. You're always working hard, after all. Thank you so much. My mom loves sweets, so she'll be thrilled. Honestly, the reason I was able to get a job even with just a high school diploma was because it was an office job. Not to look down on all office workers, but the job is relatively simple. Because it's a job that even a high school graduate can do, I felt like I wasn't very important to the company. But everyone at the company, starting with the boss, was really kind to me, and there were many people who supported me as I worked hard for my mom. Mom. This is from the boss. He said you can have it. It's a pretty famous brand of sweet pastries. Wanna eat it together? Is that so? You are truly loved. It's just that everyone is kind. But the atmosphere at work is really good, and even as a high school graduate, I feel needed. I'm glad I took the job. Not everything was going smoothly. It wasn't a matter of life or death, but my mom was hospitalized, and those costs were nothing to sneeze at. Since I worked as an office worker, my salary wasn't that high, and after paying rent and hospital bills, there was hardly any money left over. Of course, I didn't have any money to spend on hobbies, nor did I have the time, but I wasn't lonely, nor did I suffer from mental stress. Moreover, recently, someone had been making advances towards me, and my heart was a bit fluttery. Sorry. I'm late. The meeting went on longer than expected. Did you wait long? Not at all, don't worry. Good. Then, since it's already late, let's go grab some dinner. He was a salesperson who had come to the company where I worked, and as an office worker, I had met him several times. At first, we interacted purely on a professional basis, but after he made advances, we went out for dinner. It had been years since I had gone out to dinner with a man, and I really enjoyed it. After a few months, we started dating, and a year later, we got married. Both of us were over 30, and there was a rush to get married, but I was glad I could marry him. However, my opinion changed about a month after we got married. You know, I've decided to quit my job. Excuse me? My current job isn't what I want to do. So, I'm going to pursue what I really want to do from now on. But what about our living expenses? For a while, we can manage on your salary. Don't worry, I won't be unemployed forever. Being newly married, and though not a lot, I was able to bring in a stable income. That's why I decided to support my husband's job hunting. A job is important as a means to earn money, and it's natural to seek a position that pays more. But since it's something you do every day, you shouldn't settle for less. I'm not the kind of person who can just say work is work and not get stressed about it. Alright, but my salary isn't that much, so try to find a job as soon as you can. Sure. Even when I was living alone, I was barely making ends meet, so there was no room for savings. That's why, covering living expenses for the two of us on just my salary was tough, but I decided to support my husband in his job search. However, I'm home. Huh? Did you smoke? Me? Smoke? No way. Then why do I smell cigarettes? Could it be gambling at casino? Ah. I went to an interview today, and I stopped by on my way back. I've told you to quit gambling. Why would you do that? It's just a little break. You can't expect me to spend all my days just going to interviews without any breaks, right? Indeed. I understand that being chased by interviews every day can accumulate stress. But isn't that unavoidable? He was the one who quit his job, and I was the one funding his job search. On days he has interviews in both the morning and afternoon, I even give him lunch money. If there's money for gambling, I wish he'd save a bit. Where are you even getting the money for gambling? From the grocery money. If I end up making a profit, you shouldn't have any complaints, right? I've told you to not dip into our living expenses. It's not like we're in a huge debts. Plus, if I shop during the supermarket's discount hours, it ends up being cheaper. I'm the one who does the shopping. Going to work, then shopping, and I have to cook too. The discount hours at the supermarket are right before closing time at night. Are you really saying I should go shopping at such a time? I never thought he'd push everything onto me like this, nor did I anticipate our marriage facing problems so early on. Well, once I get a job, I'll manage from my own salary. It's not about that. You're being too naggy, you know? Since I have an interview tomorrow, can you hurry up and make dinner? Really? Why am I being made out to be the bad one here? If he has money and time to go gambling, he could have at least thought about me, working and doing household chores, and bought dinner. Well, expecting anything from my husband is probably pointless. Oh well. After saying all this, surely even he would understand. That was what I thought, but his behavior never improved. Hey. It's been half a year since you started your job search. When are you going to find something? If it were easy, I would have found something by now. Don't you get it? Finding the perfect job isn't that simple. I understand that, but isn't compromise important too? If this keeps up, you'll be unemployed forever. If there's a long gap, employers will wonder what you've been doing, and it'll only make it harder for you to get hired, you know? Stop nagging. You don't know how hard it is to change jobs. When I said that, my husband snapped back at me. But I don't think what I'm saying is wrong at all. Despite saying he's job hunting, my husband spends all his time gambling. The lack of progress in finding a job and the constant spending of money are causing me trouble. Lately, he's even started going out at night. I'm heading out for a bit. Again. It's already 8 p.m. Where are you going at this hour? Where? It's none of your business, is it? How can it not be my business? And, how are you managing the money? It's none of your business. Stop nagging me. Don't interfere with what I'm doing. He yelled and then left. Why do I have to be yelled at? And I don't even know where he's going. No money, but where and what is he doing at night? Could it be an affair? The thought crossed my mind, but I couldn't believe he would betray me to that extent. No. Maybe I just wanted to believe that. Despite having no money, going out night after night, an affair was the only thing I could think of, but I didn't want to add more worries to my plate. And so, about 3 months passed. My husband still hadn't found a new job, and time just kept passing by. Lately, I've been so fed up, wondering if he even intends to find a new job, but today, he unusually wore a suit and left early in the morning. I'll be home late today, so don't wait up for dinner. Got it. Take care. I was off work and at home, wondering if he might be going for an interview. Or maybe, he just wore the suit to deceive me and went gambling. I had set a limit for myself. If a year passed since he started job hunting and he still hadn't found a job, I'd consider divorce. I can't follow a person I can't trust. That's what I thought. While thinking such thoughts and tidying up the room, my eyes landed on a bank book I had stored in the dresser. I keep important things on the right side of the dresser. So why was it moved to the left? Thinking this, I quickly checked the contents of the bank account balance. And, almost all the savings I had saved up were gone. What's going on? Who could have? Various thoughts came to mind, but there was only one suspect. My husband. He might be at an interview, but regardless, I called him. Hello. Where are you right now? I'm on my way to an interview. Did you withdraw money from my account? The money I had saved up is gone. What's going on? I needed the money. I was planning to pay you back once I got a job, that's why I didn't tell you. Don't mess with me. This is nothing but theft. Have you lost the ability to tell right from wrong? I'm not saying I won't pay you back, so there's no need for you to freak out, okay? I told you I'd pay you back once I get a job and start making money. Don't you understand what I'm saying? Hold on. Why am I being made out to be the bad one here? The current situation. It's 100% my husband's fault. I could understand if it were savings we saved up together after getting married. But, this is money I've saved up on my own over 10 years. Even though it was tough just covering my mom's hospital bills and living expenses, I saved a little bit whenever I could. The amount might not have been huge, but such betrayal. I couldn't forgive. It's not about the amount. It was the betrayal by my husband that made me furious. Don't mess with me. You might as well not come back home. I said and hung up the phone. Maybe he needed money urgently. Well, most likely, he spent it on gambling or something, but even if not, shouldn't he have discussed it with me first? Just because we're family doesn't mean anything goes. Especially with money lending and borrowing among family, it has to be handled properly. It's a matter of trust. Even a child knows that. I won't accept an adult not understanding this. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, and I couldn't control my emotions. That's how mad I was. That evening, I went to the hospital to discuss this with my mom. Can you believe he spent the money I saved up without asking? Isn't that crazy? Yes, it's unbelievable. My mom said it's better to divorce such a person. You shouldn't marry someone you can't trust if you're going to spend decades together. I was planning to wait a year, but I started thinking it's better to divorce him sooner. That's how I felt. When I returned home, my husband hadn't come back yet, so I ate and went to bed. I had work the next day, so I ate breakfast and headed to the office. There was a lot to do, but my mind was preoccupied with yesterday's events. I could barely get anything done and couldn't concentrate at all until the evening. However, I couldn't just leave without doing anything, so I decided to stay late and finish today's work. Are you still here? You know, you can go home and come back to it tomorrow if you need to. No. I couldn't get much done today, so I need to finish what I have to before I go home. Have a good evening. I said this to the boss and went back to my work. Even though I knew I had to finish today, my work speed was less than half of my usual. My mind was filled not with work, but with thoughts of my husband. Switching my focus was easier said than done. What am I going to do now? If I'm going to divorce, when should I do it? And how should I bring it up? My unemployed husband can't live without me. Even if I say I want a divorce, I don't think he'll agree easily. The place we're living in is in my name, so moving out would be a hassle. And without any money on hand, moving out wouldn't even be an option. What should I do? As I pondered this while working, it quickly became night. I'm finally done. But it's already 9 p.m. It was past 9 p.m. when I finished, and I went out to eat. Probably my husband was back home, and I didn't want to see his face. That was all I could think about. After eating at a diner, it was about 10:30 p.m. It's about time to head back. Thinking this, I reluctantly started my way home. I arrived at the street in front of my house in about 30 minutes, walking with my head down. The lights were on inside, so my husband was back. I wished he had gone to bed earlier so I could avoid seeing him, but as I got closer to the house. Excuse me. What? The person who came out from beside the house was a young, tall man. His hair was long and unkempt, and he was wearing sweats. I stepped back in fear, but this person lived next door. We hadn't spoken before, and he was rumored to be a recluse in the neighborhood because he was always home. I was terrified and my mind went blank. Even though I recognized him, we had never spoken, and I didn't know what kind of person he was. Alone in the middle of the night with no one else around, and it seemed like he had been waiting for me. What should I do? The thought that this person might, made my heart race and sweat break out. I'm sorry for startling you, but it's not a good time to go inside right now. What? It's not good to talk about it here. Let's go to the diner down the street. There's a lot we need to talk about. He said, then started walking, indicating for me to follow. What exactly is going on? But being told it's better not to enter the house. I wanted to hear the story, so I asked him while keeping my distance. Wait a minute. What do you mean it's better not to enter the house? There are people in the house, not just your husband. Your husband, he's borrowed money, right? The people collecting that debt are waiting for you. He said this while looking into my eyes, then started walking again. Could it be about debt collection? I had no idea my husband had borrowed money. Sure, he had used up my money, but did he borrow money after running out? For gambling. I didn't know what he was up to, so I couldn't be sure if this guess was right, but if what he's saying is true, it was right not to enter the house. And he might know something. If it's at a diner, there are people around, and I won't be put in danger. Thinking this, I decided to follow him. We arrived at the diner in about 10 minutes, and we ordered some drink. So, what's happening exactly? First, I apologize for startling you. It looked like I was lying in wait, but I had to do that to prevent you from entering the house. That's okay, but what exactly is? Actually, I'm a foreign currency trader. I work from evening to midnight. So, today, when I got up in the evening to start working, I heard loud noises from next door. Looking out the window, I saw a group of 3 shady people entering your house. My window was open, so I could hear their conversation. They were talking about how to pay back a debt of $100,000. What? $100,000? He had borrowed that much. Honestly, I was shocked because I didn't expect it to be such a large amount. $100,000 is a huge amount. What did he borrow it for? Even for gambling, that's too much. Is that true? Yes, it's true. I was surprised too. I heard the entire conversation. Is he gambling? I think he goes to gambling, but no. I think it's some illegal, underground casino. What? Underground gambling. I wasn't familiar with that kind of stuff, but I guess it's like a legal casino. Betting a fortune, so that's why he borrowed $100,000. Trying to strike it rich, but obviously, that's ridiculous. And when he couldn't pay it back, they came to collect at the house. I'm working hard, and he's doing this. I was really angry at my husband. And, if he was there since the evening, he must have been waiting for me to come home. They can't take anything from my husband because he's not working, so they must have been planning to take it from me. My husband has caused me such trouble. Does he not care at all? So, you helped me because you heard that conversation? Yes. It didn't seem like your husband was working. I thought maybe I was being too nosy, but I'm glad I spoke up. If I had gone into the house as usual. Thank you so much. No. It's okay. Thanks to the neighbor looking out for me, I was saved. But I couldn't just go home, so I decided to stay at a nearby business hotel for the night. I didn't tell my husband because I didn't want him coming to the hotel. And the next day, I had the neighbor check the situation at the house, and once the debt collectors had left, I went home. What? Who were those people? You. What were you doing yesterday? Why didn't you come home without saying anything? Obviously. Knowing those scary people were there, how could I come back? And about the $100,000 debt. What's that all about? Explain. That is. As I confronted my husband with a loud voice and glaring at him, he mumbled his response. He can't even explain his own actions? I thought if he had come back and immediately apologized, I might have listened, but his dishonesty just made me more and more furious, and I exploded. Enough! First, you squander my money, then get involved with loan sharks, and to top it all off, illegal gambling? You're finished as a person. I was under a lot of stress. It's hard to find a job, and I was feeling insecure. I'm not listening to excuses. Don't mess with me. Don't drag me into this mess. I yelled, and my husband shut his mouth completely. He had nothing to say back, but it seemed like he wasn't even remorseful. If he was, he would have apologized by now. But no apology meant no remorse. Sorry, but I want a divorce, so sign this and just leave. What? Divorce? No way! In this situation, what am I supposed to do alone? That's exactly why I want to cut ties with you. And I'm planning to have your mother come over. What? My mom has nothing to do with this. If you oppose the divorce, who else will be on my side? Of course, I didn't expect my husband to agree to the divorce just like that. That's why I contacted his mother, hoping she would be on my side. Since greeting her at our marriage, I hadn't communicated much with her, but my mother-in-law, unlike my husband, had a sensible disposition. After I explained the situation, she apologized to me several times and immediately took my side. My husband was infuriated that I called his mother, but within 30 minutes, she arrived, creating a 2-against-1 scenario. Do you even realize the extent of what you've done? Causing trouble like this to others. You should be ashamed. Wait a minute. This has nothing to do with my mom. How can it not be related? Regarding the divorce and the money you've misused, you're going to take full responsibility. Well, just excuses. Now be quiet. Sign the divorce papers and pack your bags. We'll talk after we get home. My mother-in-law said, took the divorce papers from me, and went towards my husband. She tried to make him sign, but he stubbornly refused. He knew that divorcing would put him in a difficult position. He probably thought I would sort everything out as long as we didn't divorce. It's naive, but maybe my actions made him think that way. Okay, maybe it's better to call the police then. You were at an illegal casino, weren't you? Wait a minute. Can't we avoid making it a police matter? But you won't agree to the divorce, and you won't leave this house. So, isn't taking you to the police the best option? If the police get involved, you're the one in trouble. Yet, you still insist on having your way? The moment I mentioned the police, his expression froze. He probably didn't expect me to go this far. But I'm saying we're divorcing. Do you think I care what happens to you? If you think that, how carefree can you be? He doesn't understand what he's done or the situation he's in. Why should I clean up after your mess? If you can't take responsibility for your actions, the only option is to call the police. Wait. Please, no police. I'm begging you, seriously, don't do that. You're not working, so what's the problem with being reported to the police? It's not about that. If you keep refusing the divorce, I'll help her calling the police. With my mother-in-law saying that, my husband finally realized he had no allies here. My mother-in-law was helping. I could have unilaterally decided to call the police. If she hadn't intervened, I would have contacted them immediately. And yet, I was really frustrated with this man, but he finally signed the divorce papers. Also, about the money you misused, you'll be returning it. I'll transfer that money immediately, and I'll also cover the loan from the loan sharks. If things continue this way, you'll be troubled. Thank you. But, no matter how many years it takes, I'll recover the money from this fool. We're not planning to just take responsibility and end it here, my mother-in-law said, glaring fiercely at my husband. Knowing my mother-in-law would cover for him, my money would be returned soon, and I wouldn't be targeted by the loan sharks. Also, the fact that she assured me they would diligently recover the funds from my husband gave me peace of mind. If we just let my mother-in-law take responsibility on behalf of my husband, he would live on without facing any punishment, and that was unacceptable. Then my husband packed his things, left the house with my mother-in-law, and I submitted the divorce papers to the city office, finalizing everything. My mother-in-law promptly made the payments, so I had no visits from loan sharks and could continue living in my house without any problems. Did you get divorced from your husband? Yes. It's been quite the ordeal. I'll be continuing to live here, so I hope we can get along well. Likewise, let's be good neighbors. I properly greeted the neighbor afterwards, thanking him for helping me at the last moment and apologizing for any trouble I caused. There were rumors he was unemployed, and I hadn't had the best impression of him, but this experience reminded me not to judge people by their appearances. Later, I heard from my mother-in-law that my husband had started working at a factory owned by one of her acquaintances and is now living with his parents, working hard every day on a modest salary. His salary is entirely devoted to repaying my mother-in-law, leaving him with no disposable income. After such behavior, he shouldn't expect any freedom. I don't know how much interest was on the money he borrowed from the loan sharks or how much he paid back, but it seems he will continue this lifestyle for a few years. My mother-in-law said she would kick him out once he finishes repaying her, and it seems he'll be quitting the factory job around the same time, likely returning to unemployment. How he plans to live nearing 40 and unemployed, I don't know, but, well, it's none of my business. Since then, I've continued living in the same house and have become friends with the neighbor. We go out for meals together on weekends since we're both single and have free time. Even after divorcing my husband, I have my mother, colleagues, and the neighbor. I'm not lonely at all. What's important in life is relationships. And in building those relationships, it's crucial to earn solid trust. Betraying others will always come to light and drive away those who are important. That is why I will continue to live my life so as not to betray my loved ones. Ariana, who once stole my fiancé, Jake, only to dump him and then vanished without paying the compensation she owed my parents for the trouble she caused. Now, she stands before us, making snide remarks. Your husband is quite older, isn't he? What does he do for a living? My husband is a doctor. Compared to him, your husband looks poor. He's quite muscular. Does he, by any chance, work on a construction site? Just as I was about to retort, my husband, Michael, stopped me. I do physical work, yes. Speaking of doctors, working here means he's employed at the Blue Island General Hospital? Yes. He's a surgeon. Really? He's one of my subordinates, though? You mean William from the Blue Island General Hospital, right? I believe his specialty is plastic surgery. Huh? Yes? Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm the chief of surgery at the General Hospital. My name's Michael. Shocked by the encounter with Ariana, I burst into tears as soon as we got into the car to go home. Michael then asked me, "You've been thinking about something, haven't you? Tell me, how do you want to deal with her from now on?" Deal with her? That's impossible, obviously. Just thinking about it makes me feel suffocated. There was a time when just thinking about Ariana would make me hyperventilate. Yeah, I understand that you really don't want to be near that woman. That's why I have a plan. A plan? Yes, a way to ensure that a woman never appears before you again. My name is Maria. I'm a 32-year-old housewife. Currently, I live a peaceful and enjoyable life with my husband, Michael, who is 12 years older than me, and our 3-year-old son. Michael is extremely busy with his work, which he takes great pride in. I find fulfillment in supporting him at home. It might be rare these days to dedicate oneself to protecting the home for a husband who works outside. That's what some might say. Even my parents have mentioned it. Now, I have a truly happy family. But getting here wasn't without its hardships. That's because I was betrayed by someone I thought was my best friend. Ariana, who I met in college within the same department, was a friend. No, I thought of her as my best friend for 4 years, doing everything together. Coming to a college in the city, I was a bit intimidated, but Ariana reached out to me. She was bright, flashy, and above all, active, which surprised me in many ways, but I followed her nonetheless. For me, who had been modest and serious until high school, she was someone who opened up a new world. And our relationship continued even after we graduated. At that time, we both found jobs in companies in the city. Whenever we had time, we often went out to eat. Eventually, I met someone too. Jake, a salesperson from a manufacturer that did business with the trading company where I worked. As an office worker, I started getting asked out by him, and eventually, we started dating. Honestly, having hardly dated men before, I was over the moon. Everything went smoothly, and after a year of dating, we got engaged when I was 26. I probably got carried away at that time. You haven't been hanging out much lately, have you? Ariana would sometimes say. Well, that's true. I don't have multiple bodies. Naturally, I started spending more of my weekends with Jake. Are you keeping secrets from me? Not really hiding anything. Ariana, for her part, had never introduced me to anyone she was dating. So, I thought friendships and romantic relationships were different. Since we were planning our wedding, it was natural that my time was increasingly taken up by him. I didn't tell Ariana about it, not because I wanted to surprise her. But I won't deny there was also a feeling of embarrassment. Introducing him to Ariana, who could easily chat up and hang out with any guy, felt daunting. Back then, I was afraid of how Jake would appear in Ariana's eyes. Yet, as the wedding approached, I thought it was finally okay to tell her. "Hey, there's someone I want you to meet," I said as I introduced Jake to Ariana. "Oh my! Maria, keeping secrets from your best friend? That's so like you." Ariana patted my back with a beaming smile. But that turned out to be a mistake. When the wedding reservation and preparations were nearly finalized, Jake suddenly came to my parents' house and said, "I'm sorry. I can't marry you." When I asked why, he said, "Ariana is pregnant." I couldn't comprehend what he was saying at first. After that, it was a mess. Was Ariana really pregnant? At that point, it didn't matter anymore. He called off the engagement when the wedding was just around the corner. "I'm so sorry." In my stunned silence, my dad, half furious, berated and even hit him while he was apologizing. It could have gotten worse if my mom hadn't stopped him. The wedding was canceled. While I was incapable of doing anything, my outraged parents demanded he pay the full cancellation fee and compensation for what he did to their only daughter. They also demanded compensation from Ariana. He admitted his fault and seemed to pay what he owed, apologizing sincerely. I say seemed because my memory of that time isn't very clear. I was in shock, likely in denial about reality. So, I found out later that Ariana had skipped town without apologizing or paying any compensation. It turns out she wasn't actually pregnant, according to a letter she left behind. The lie and her fleeing devastated me again. What was she thinking? Ariana's parents were furious as well. When this rumor spread among our college friends, I heard another shocking thing. "I didn't say anything because you didn't notice, but Ariana used to go after every guy you liked, one after another." This was news to me. Why would she do that? I don't know. Even though Ariana was popular on her own, every time someone showed interest in you, she ended up making them date her instead. Maybe she was jealous when guys approached you instead of her? But we were best friends. Were you, though? I was shocked. Back then, it seemed more like you were following Ariana around, and everyone thought she saw you that way too. That hit me hard. Not just realizing Ariana's true thoughts, but also that I had been completely oblivious to it, and my lack of judgment when it came to men. Adding to the shock, the stares at work labeled me as the woman who got jilted right before her wedding, and I finally broke down. I quit my job and spent some time recuperating at my parents' house. Then, settled down, I got a new job at 28 and started matchmaking on my parents' advice, not trusting my own judgment anymore. I felt more secure with being introduced by worried relatives. Among them, I met Michael, a man 12 years my senior. He was too busy with work to even think about women, and by the time he realized, he was already this age. At 40, his surroundings got worried and arranged a matchmaking for him. I decided to marry him because he was upfront about possibly neglecting family due to his work, which I saw as honesty. Considering my past failure, we only informed close family and friends about our wedding. The following year, I got pregnant and planned to take a break from work, but then Michael got headhunted by another company in a different city. I felt bad for leaving my relatively new job, but everyone was kind and saw me off. And so, our new life as three began in a new place. What? Could it be Maria? One day, by sheer coincidence, Ariana appeared right in front of me. That day, the three of us had gone to the shopping mall. Our target for the day was the home improvement tools. Since moving here, we've been gradually working on our new home's interior ourselves. DIY has always been a hobby of mine. Michael's new job is a higher position than before, and it comes with less irregular hours. So, now he sometimes helps me with shopping for heavy items. Well, right now, he's carrying our son, Sean, on his shoulders, but what are the odds in this mall? Ariana? Long time no see. Wow, you got married. Yeah, but Ariana, you're in this town? Yep. Moved here for my husband's job. Wow, so this is your current husband? Ariana looked at us over. Then to Michael, she snidely said, quite older, isn't he? Michael casually responded, yeah, got a bit too caught up in work. Maria's friend, right? Yes, Ariana. And you're all about work, huh? What do you do? Ariana, isn't that a bit abrupt? Oh, Maria, are you still mad about it? It's not that. My husband's a doctor. Compared to him, your husband looks poor. He's got quite the muscles, though. Does he, by any chance, work in construction? Judging by appearances alone. That way of speaking. But before I could argue back, Michael stopped me. I do. Speaking of doctors, does he work at Blue Island General Hospital? Yes. He's a surgeon. Really? He's one of my subordinates, though? Huh? You mean William from Blue Island General Hospital, right? Yeah. Oh, right. Sorry for the late introduction. I'm the chief of surgery at the hospital, Michael. Michael, as in the one who was eagerly headhunted last year? What a coincidence. Michael smiled gently. Yes. Suddenly, Ariana's attitude changed. Thinking back, this had happened before. I just hadn't noticed. Oh, my apologies. I didn't realize it because of your casual attire. No worries, casual clothes are just that. I clenched the hem of Michael's work clothes he was wearing at the time. What's wrong, Maria? Let's head back. Are you sure? She's an old friend, right? Yeah. There's so much I want to talk about. Let's go. Okay then. Sorry, maybe some other time. Sure, love to. Ariana's cheerful voice irked me. What's wrong? You look pale, and your pulse is racing. While saying this, we went back to the car, and as Michael put Sean in his child seat, he checked my temperature and pulse. No more, I never want to see Ariana again. I don't want to. He gently patted my trembling shoulder. If you don't want to see her, that's fine, but can you tell me why later? I just nodded silently. That night, after putting Sean to bed, I told Michael everything that had happened. I see, so that's it. I knew you had been cheated on by your fiancé right before the wedding, but I didn't know she was the woman. You knew? I figured something sad had happened. I nodded silently, several times. Yes. It's not just that. It's always been. Tears of frustration won't stop falling from my eyes. It's always like this. I realize something after it happens. I've always hated Ariana. If that's the case, she's really toxic. And it seems like she has an unhealthy obsession with you. With me? Yeah. Isn't it obvious? Luring away anyone who gets close to you only to discard them. What does she think of these men to her, huh? That's true, but even with your former fiancé, it turns out he's not married now, if he was supposed to be with William. That's indeed the case. And about William, or rather. Michael suddenly looked thoughtful. What's wrong? Ariana's husband is. I was just thinking. Tell me, Maria, how do you want to deal with her going forward? Deal with her? That's impossible, obviously. Just thinking about it makes me feel suffocated. There was a time when just thinking about Ariana would make me hyperventilate. It's okay, it's okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, I understand you really don't want to be near that woman. That's why I have a plan. A plan? Yes, a way to ensure that a woman never appears before you again. And then, Michael smiled gently again. Ah, that's right, this man, though he seems calm, takes action when it's necessary. 2 weeks later. In the evening while preparing dinner and waiting for Michael to come home, Mom, Grandpa and Grandma. Suddenly, Sean pointed out the window. Right after that, the doorbell rang. Indeed. It was my parents. I hurried to welcome them in. Their home is several states away. It takes hours by car. What's going on? Yeah, Michael called us. He said it was urgent, so we're here to watch the house. House sitting? Haven't you heard? I quickly sent a message to Michael. Immediately, I received a reply, so your parents have arrived. Come here now. And bring your earphones, along with the URL of a certain restaurant. I don't know what's going on, but it looks like I have to go out now. Unusual for Michael. I was in the middle of cooking dinner. That's okay, we'll finish up. Let's make it our dinner. Wondering what was going on, I started to get ready to leave. By the way, Maria, we saw that girl's parents at the rest area on the way here. My mom mentioned, as if remembering something. That girl? That girl. Ah, just thinking about it irks me, that. Ariana? I don't even want to say her name. But what could it be about? I hadn't told my parents that Ariana was living in this area. Given how down I was at that time, my mom's worry was tremendous. And her tirade against Ariana's parents was fierce. Honestly, I never thought my mom could get so angry. Because of that past, I thought mentioning Ariana over the phone would complicate things. I'll be going then. I got into the car and headed to the restaurant Michael had specified. It was a cozy, nice-looking restaurant. According to the restaurant's website in the URL, the dinner seemed moderately priced. I wondered if Michael was waiting here for me. As I got out of the car, noticing a few other vehicles parked as the evening gradually darkened. Another message popped up on my phone. Put on your earphones and come inside. Curious, I entered the restaurant where a waiter guided me to a two-person table. A man sat alone at the next table over. A drink in front of him, elbows on the table, hands covering his mouth. Exuding an unapproachable aura with his sunglasses and all-black attire. I'm waiting for someone. I began to tell the waiter to bring water and suggested the menu. He subtly gestured towards a seat across the room. There was Michael, seated opposite a woman, with several dishes that seemed like an early dinner laid out on the table. I nodded to the waiter and ordered a light meal that wouldn't seem out of place on the table. At that moment, my phone vibrated inside my bag. It was a message from Michael. Hurriedly, I attached the earphones to my phone and put them in my ears. Then I heard it. No, William is a good doctor. He specializes in plastic surgery. But you're even more remarkable, isn't that right? The woman's voice I heard, her back to me, was Ariana's. Startled, I switched my phone to record mode. Michael was intentionally letting me listen. Since then, I've asked William a bit about you. Oh, is that so? I was amazed. After all, you've handled so many difficult surgeries nationally, haven't you? Thousands over 10 years, I heard? Well, it's my job. Amazing. Ariana's tone had completely changed from our last encounter. Still, you've done quite the research. Actually, I heard it from William, when I mentioned running into you the other day. Then, the man in black slightly lifted his hips before sitting back down. Glancing over, I noticed he too was wearing earphones. It must have been a surprise, suddenly reuniting with an old friend. Yes, but meeting you was the highlight. Shouldn't an old friend be more important? No, I felt bad for speaking so dismissively of you before. I wanted to apologize. Ariana continued in a tone that sounded almost like she was biting her tongue. I hadn't known. She never spoke like this when she was with me during our student days. So, this was how she acted around men. And thus, my former fiancé too. But are you satisfied with your marriage to Maria? I am, but why do you ask? Isn't it boring with Maria? Why would you say that? Because she was ditched by her fiancé before, you know. Maria is a good wife, more than I deserve. But she's plain, isn't she? What are you trying to say? Actually, since our conversation the other day, I've fallen for your calm demeanor and presence. I think I could be much more for you than Maria. The man in black's hands trembled visibly on the table. So, this was his play. Oh, for me? What do you mean by that? Because you're invited to parties and such, right? With a plain wife like Maria, wouldn't you be embarrassed? In such places, you need someone more radiant, like me. So you think you wouldn't embarrass me? Yes. So, you're suggesting you'd leave William for me? No, that sounds terrible when you put it like that. Then what do you mean? I'm a bit slow on the uptake, you see. Ah, come on. Do you really make a woman say it? I told you, I fell for you. William is a promising man. Not an old man like me. Age doesn't matter. Actually, I'm disappointed in him. That's when it happened. The man in black started to stand up. I hurriedly approached him. A man dressed all in black, probably this must be William. I silently stared at his face and showed him my earphones and the connected smartphone. William sat down again, as if realizing something. I needed to hear something more definitive. Disappointment. What does that mean? You mean coming home late every day? If that's the case, it's because of work. Unfortunately, patients don't wait. No, it's not about him coming home late or anything like that. Then what is it? It's his salary. Given his age and career, it's normal. Young professionals are like that. But he's a doctor, right? So? I mean, if your partner is a doctor, you'd expect an income over $200,000, right? I believe he's making around $140,000 to $150,000 now. When we got married, it was less, and I was disappointed compared to what I had expected. Moreover, he goes to conferences and stuff, but he never takes me with him. So what if I were in that situation? So? It's not about the money. Haven't I told you several times? It was love at first sight. What do you mean? I want you to date me. At that moment, William finally stood up. I tried to stop him, but it was probably too late. He stood behind Ariana, who was sitting across the table. I hurried after him. Then, Michael smiled faintly. Ariana, is what you just said true? Behind an oblivious Ariana, William spoke in a low voice. Ariana literally jumped in surprise when she turned around. What? You? And Maria? What are you two doing? Don't tell me you're cheating? See, when you have something to hide, you end up saying things like that. Michael said calmly to Ariana. I heard your conversation. So you've always thought of me like that, huh? What do you mean, like that? Here you are. I then confronted Ariana with the recording of our conversation. What's this? Michael took out 2 smartphones from his bag. One was connected to me, and the other must have been connected to William. Do you even know what it means to become a fully fledged doctor? What's this all of a sudden? We spent years in college, then years before becoming regular doctors. I had just become a regular doctor when I met you. What? Ariana started counting on her fingers suddenly. So, I was just a newbie. But, you said you were a doctor at the mixer. I am a doctor. And at that time, I was dragged there by a high school buddy. I thought it was too early to marry, but you were the one who aggressively pursued me. Plus, I was earning more than my peers in corporate jobs. It was you who assumed I made more. Indeed. Doctors are well paid, but not until they're fully established. And whether they own a practice, where they work, their employment status, and age can all affect their income. And it's true that doctors have fewer chances to marry. It was a rare outing because I'm still a busy newbie, which is why I initially declined. Yes, that's true. It might sound like an excuse, but I wanted to work in rural healthcare. I needed to build up my experience in the field to be as versatile as possible. Yet, whenever I mentioned this, you would hysterically scream. But I don't want to go to the countryside. Even though I said it pays better, you didn't want to hear it. And it's not just that. You said you'd be a housewife to support me, but you don't do any housework. What? I was surprised at that. But housework isn't just for women nowadays. That's if both are working. I chimed in. In today's world, if you decide to be a stay-at-home wife, you really need to manage all household duties perfectly, so your husband doesn't have to worry about anything. Maria. Even you're saying that. But, are you managing all that, along with your social obligations? You seem to be misunderstanding something. Michael sighed deeply. You clearly have the wrong image of a doctor's wife. Indeed. That's more like the image of a housewife from the past. The glamorous life you imagine doesn't exist. I'm always watching the clock for his uncertain return time, managing childcare, and ensuring he has the stamina to handle surgeries lasting 10+ hours by planning nutritious meals. Oh, I see. William, have you been thinking I'm inattentive because I frequently seem to overlook things? Maybe you haven't been getting enough sleep at home? Yes. Well, I used to cook and do household chores on my own, but even so, my sleep hours have been significantly reduced because he keeps bothering me whenever he's home, making it hard to find time to study. Study? Of course. It's only natural to constantly acquire new knowledge for our patients. So, Maria, you're studying too? At this age? Of course. I'd be in trouble if I couldn't respond to his sudden calls. If it were a marriage between doctors, things like household chores and secretarial tasks would probably be outsourced. But I'm just an ordinary person, so I do what I can to support Michael, for his sake, the hospitals, and the patients. And I want to show our son a model of diligent work. How arrogant! Say what you will. I'm not the person I used to be. That's right. Watching Ariana directly trying to charm Michael stirred a different kind of anger in me, not the fear I had felt before. Ariana, unable to counter my arguments, remained silent, possibly out of frustration. Then, William interjected firmly. Ariana, I've decided to leave you. We're getting a divorce. What? What are you talking about? Being with you, I can't become the doctor I aim to be. And let me ask again, are you willing to follow me to rural areas? No, I can't go to such places. I see. But I want to go. That's why I can no longer be swayed by you. Ariana's face froze. You can't be serious about leaving me. Suddenly, Ariana turned to me. It's all because I met you again, Maria. Why did you have to come here? If only we hadn't met. So, you're saying you wouldn't have thought about taking my husband if we hadn't met? You haven't changed at all since college. What? How dare you? Watching her, I began to feel pity for Ariana rather than fear. Why have you always taken and then discarded men who were interested in me or my boyfriends? Because I hated you, the plain good girl. But Ariana, hating me doesn't justify the effort you've put in. Like with Jake, you ended up running away from home. That's right. Ariana's actions were strange. If she hated me, she could have ignored me or bullied me directly. Yet, she took men away from me and discarded them, making it visible to our friends. And she even took my fiancé and demanded alimony. Ariana, could it be that you actually liked me a lot? What? She opened her eyes wide in disbelief. Was it my imagination, or did her neck veins bulge visibly when she got angry? It's said that veins bulge when one is angry. Apart from Jake, I hardly noticed. And the men who switched to you because of Ariana's tricks were not worth much anyway. In the end, it worked out in my favor, didn't it? No, that's not true. Even if I had married Jake, he might have cheated on me. So, Ariana, were you actually saving me from unhappiness? What? Ariana's gaze wandered. Didn't you realize? That can't be. I'm sorry, but I'll forget about you from now on. No, that's a lie. As she said that, Ariana suddenly collapsed in front of us, clutching her chest. Doctor! William looked at Michael with a serious expression. Call an ambulance, quick! Right away! Soon after explaining the situation to the ambulance, Michael and William went with it. Indeed, Michael specializes in cardiac surgery. He probably won't be coming home today. As I sighed deeply, the waiter brought our order. Thank you. Sorry for the commotion. No worries, this place was booked exclusively for you by Michael today. Wow, He had arranged even that. Truly, when he decides to do something, he does it right, I thought with a smile. Later at the hospital, there was another commotion. According to Michael's plan, Ariana's parents were supposed to come storming in. Shockingly, Ariana had only reported her marriage but had not introduced William to her parents. Perhaps the timing had prevented travel out of state. But that time had passed. Michael, through William, had contacted Ariana's parents for two reasons. One was the potential for further issues with men. The other was because he had noticed something off about Ariana's health. He had been suspicious of the way the veins on the right side of her neck bulged since their first meeting. As it turned out, Ariana did have a heart condition. She needed some hospital stay, but her life was not in danger due to the timely intervention. Her parents, having rushed over, decided to take Ariana home. Between the divorce, the sudden discovery of her illness, and being called out by me, Ariana was quite shaken. "I don't want to go back home." Ariana resisted her parents. "But you need to pay back the alimony we fronted," her father said angrily, and weakened by her condition, Ariana couldn't respond. The divorce led to mediation, where William's misuse of funds was also brought up, further increasing the amount her parents had to cover. Dragged back home, Ariana was now forced to work within their sight to repay them, a tough situation given her free-spirited nature. Caring for her health while being watched by her parents, and chased by serious work every day, for the free-spirited Ariana, that must be an unbearable ordeal. Look, a message from William. It's the weekend. Michael took a half-day off work, so the three of us went to a park with a wide grassy area for the first time in a while. Despite the chilly days continuing, Sean, dressed warmly, was running around on the grass, laughing. Is he all right? As we sat on a bench with a view of Sean, we took turns looking at an email. Check out this photo. The photo showed William smiling and participating in a local festival. A stark contrast to his previously worried expression. That's great. You won't have to be troubled by the past anymore. That's absolutely true. Half of the fear I had was self-generated. And facing Ariana seemed to have lifted some kind of curse. Daddy! Sean waved at us enthusiastically. All right, let's catch him, said Michael as he started running. And I watched the two of them, guarding this moment. Now and in the future too. I'm carrying Mike's baby. Not tired of just interrupting weddings, a former best friend declares so. Instead of denying it, Mike beamed with a full smile. I'm gonna marry Ellie. Those words caused a stir among the family, except for Hannah and her mother. As everyone else looked on in disbelief, only the two of them appeared happy. All I could do was look on in dismay. That's okay with you, right, Hannah? I'm sorry, Hannah. Please let me have Mike. She pleaded as if they were the protagonists of their own story, their eyes sparkling. In response, I said, sure. And with a smile, I passed the bride's roll to Ellie. Then, leaving the venue with only my mother following, she commented. Hey, that girl. Yeah, no doubt about it. I nodded, agreeing. Glancing back one last time, I saw the two of them smiling happily at each other. To myself, I laughed, thinking, she's a married woman, no less. After a while, oh, it's from Mike. I wonder if he's heard the truth. As an insistent call came from him. My mother and I picked up the phone, laughing together. I am Hannah Arthur, a 26-year-old office worker. I was raised in what you might call a single-parent family. My father passed away due to illness when I was still young, leaving me with little memory of him. My mother, with help from my grandparents and friends, raised me on her own. Sorry, Hannah, I'm gonna be late again today, so you head off to bed without me. Okay, I understand. Just don't overdo it, I'm fine. My mother worked hard every day, and sometimes I felt lonely. The presence of my best friend and relatives became my support system. Especially Ellie and her family, who took care of us like we were their own. Hannah. Mom said you should come over today. Really? That's great because my mom said she'd be late today. My mom and Ellie's mom are best friends, too, and they often invite me over to their house. Because of this, Ellie and I grew up like sisters, talking about everything. That's why I trust her from the bottom of my heart. I bought a new game the other day. You should come over and play sometime. Thanks, Tom. I'll come over on my next day off. Tom Turner, another person I owe a lot to, is a relative. His parents live nearby and have always looked out for me and my mom. Tom, being their only son, treated me like a little sister. Just watch, Hannah. I'll run my heart out in the parents' relay at the sports festival, making up for your dad. At the sports festival, he made a special effort to attend and garnered everyone's attention by sprinting in the parents' relay run. Because of people like them, I was able to grow up without any trouble. We never struggled financially thanks to my mom's hard work, and I can't thank her enough. Now, I'm working hard at my job, trying to give back to my mom and those who have helped us. Someday, I want to go on a trip with everyone. Thinking about this, I've been spending my days. After work one day. Oh, I've got a message from Mike. Could it be your boyfriend? Getting in touch after work, you must be loved. Well, yeah. When I checked my smartphone, there was a message from my boyfriend, Mike. Mike and I have been dating since college. Wait, Hannah? Hannah from the same middle school, right? Could it be, Mike? Originally, Mike and I went to the same school up until middle school. But due to my mom's job, we moved away before high school, putting physical distance between us. Then, we reunited in college. Our conversation picked up from there, and after he confessed, we started dating. So, I guess I'll head home early today. Yeah, thanks for your hard work. Even though we started working at different places, we still make plans to meet up after work and have dinner together sometimes. Today was one of those days, with a message from him saying, I finished up early, so I'll come pick you up at your office. Waiting in front of my office for him to arrive, Hannah? I heard someone call out. Turning around, there was Ellie. Ellie? Long time no see. Really, it's been a while. We've both been so busy, haven't had the chance to meet. True to her words, we've both been busy, and haven't seen each other lately. So, it was a happy surprise to run into Ellie like this. While we were catching up with great joy. Sorry to keep you waiting, Hannah. Mike arrived. He called out to me and then turned his gaze to Ellie. Oh. Hi. Both of them looked surprised. Come to think of it, I moved away after middle school, but they went to the same high school. So, their surprise at this unexpected reunion was understandable. Mike came to pick up Hannah, does that mean? Yeah, we're dating. I announced our relationship, and Ellie looked down for a moment. She seemed puzzled, but then she quickly looked up and smiled at us. Is that so? Congratulations. You guys are perfect for each other. She said with a smile, unchanged from the past. Comforted by her familiar demeanor, I smiled back and said, thanks. It'd be nice to go out for drinks together sometime when we have the chance. Nodding at her suggestion, we promised to meet up again and then went our separate ways. Walking and discussing where to eat dinner together. Ellie really hasn't changed a bit. I found myself thinking of her again at his remark. Indeed, she's as beautiful as ever. Ellie has always been popular because of her glamorous appearance, and just now, there were guys sneakily glancing at her. However, I'd rather you not talk about her like that in front of me. Sorry. That was thoughtless of me. When I honestly shared how I felt, Mike apologized with a laugh. Then, we switched back to more pleasant topics. At that moment, I was oblivious, not understanding why Ellie had looked down. After a while. Oh. What's wrong? Did you and your boyfriend have a fight? It's not like that, but I felt something was off with Mike. We used to go on dates every weekend, but sorry, work's been crazy. I can't make it to our date today, he's been canceling on me lately. Even dinners after work, which we used to have together daily, have now dwindled to about once a week. His puzzling behavior made me wonder if he was cheating. I can't believe Mike would do something like that, but I'm worried, I murmured, sighing deeply. That's when I got a message from Ellie. How about we catch up over tea, just the two of us? The message read, and I thought it was perfect timing to meet. It's a good opportunity to talk to Ellie about it. I didn't want to keep it to myself, and since Ellie had invited me out, I decided to confide in her. Well, it's understandable to feel anxious, but Mike's young, maybe it's natural for work to come first? I guess so, but Ellie seemed to think there was no need to worry. Seeing her like that, I started to think maybe I was overreacting. Why not wait and see a little longer? I nodded at her advice. I've always followed Ellie's advice since we were young. So, I decided to do as she suggested this time, too. We caught up on each other's recent news and promised to meet again, this time with our families. Oh, it's from Mike. On my way back, I got a message from Mike asking, "Can you meet now?" I immediately replied, "I can meet," and headed to him. And then, we ended up having dinner at a restaurant he had unusually reserved. Hannah, will you marry me? I'm so happy. Yes, I will. During that meal, I was proposed to by Mike. It turns out the reason we hadn't been meeting recently was because he was preparing this surprise. I felt ashamed for suspecting him of cheating while joyously looking at the engagement ring he gave me. I'm glad I talked to Ellie. At that moment, Mike let slip such words. Surprised to hear Ellie's name, I asked what he meant. Actually, I've been getting advice from Ellie. Apparently, Mike had been consulting with Ellie without my knowledge. Maybe that's why Ellie told me to wait and see. So, after I got home, I called her to thank her. And then, he proposed. Congratulations. Doing as I said was the right choice, wasn't it? It really was. Thanks to you, Ellie. As I agreed with Ellie's words, she suddenly fell silent. Just as I was about to ask what was wrong. I hope you'll be happy. What? Ellie said that. While I was confused by her words, she hung up. So I could not ask for clarification. It almost feels like she's saying I won't be happy. I murmured, shaking my head. It must be my imagination. Deciding not to dwell on it any further, I thought. I'll have plenty to keep me busy from now on. Then, I spent my days busily moving around, preparing for the wedding and visiting both families between work. As a result, I didn't have another chance to meet Ellie and never learned the true meaning behind her words. One day, I was called by my mother and decided to visit my childhood home. Welcome back. Tom and Damien are here too. Oh, that's nice. It's been a while since I've seen both of them. In the living room were Tom and his son Damien. It had been a while since I last saw Damien, and I wondered if he remembered me. Hannah. He came running up to me with a smile and hugged me. In fact, due to various circumstances, there was a time when I had taken care of him. Therefore, he was quite fond of me. Damien, I need to have an important talk with Hannah, so please go play in the other room. Amen. Damien reluctantly left, prompted by Tom. And my mother took him to another room. What's this important talk about? I asked, and Tom's expression turned serious. It's hard to say, but, actually. He then shared a certain truth with me. I was shocked and at first, couldn't believe what I was hearing. But gradually, anger started to bubble up inside me. So, I have a proposal. I nodded to his suggestion. Flashing through my mind were Mike, who had proposed to me, and Ellie, who had been happy about our marriage. I'll never forgive them. I found myself muttering those words. Time passed, and the day of the wedding arrived. You look so beautiful, Hannah. Thank you, Mom. My mother, as well as Mike's parents, my in-laws, had been looking forward to this day. My mother-in-law, who has known me since I was young, was especially emotional. Thank you for marrying my son, she said, tears of joy in her eyes. You look beautiful, Hannah. Thank you. Mike complimented me, and I smiled in response. The ceremony was supposed to proceed without a hitch. Hold on a moment. The quiet ceremony was interrupted by Ellie, dressed as a bride. Her stomach was slightly enlarged, showing she was pregnant. Ellie? What's going on? Mike, surprised by her sudden appearance. Meanwhile, I looked at her calmly. What's happening, Ellie? I'm sorry, Hannah, but Mike is going to marry me. Saying so, she caressed her stomach. I'm carrying Mike's baby. Not content with just crashing the wedding, my former best friend made such a declaration. To that, Mike didn't deny but instead beamed with a full smile. It really is my child. Then, I am. Those words alone were unbelievable. He then dropped a bombshell. I'm going to marry Ellie. Those words caused everyone but my mother and me to be shaken. Amidst the disbelieving stares, only the two of them looked happy. All I could do was look on in dismay. Is that okay, Hannah? I'm sorry, Hannah. Please let me have Mike. As if they thought they were the protagonists of their own story, they looked at me with sparkling eyes. In response, I said, Sure. With a smile, I passed on the role of bride to Ellie. And then, leaving the venue, only my mother followed me. Hey, that girl. Yeah, no doubt about it. I nodded in agreement with my mom's words. Glancing back one last time, I saw the two of them smiling happily at each other. At that sight, I couldn't help but laugh to myself, thinking, she's a married woman, and yet those two are about to descend into hell. Both of you, good job today, Tom said as we were leaving the venue. I shared with him that everything had gone as expected. Then, I'll make my entrance as planned. Please take care of Damien, he said before leaving Damien with us and entering the venue. Let's go to the store, Damien. Yeah. We watched Tom, radiating anger, and proceeded to a nearby store as planned. The store had a kids' space where Damien played happily while my mom and I discussed what would happen next. Shortly after, oh, it's from Mike. I wonder if he's heard the truth. Mike was frantically calling. My mom and I picked up the phone, laughing. What's going on? What the heck is this all about? Don't yell all of a sudden. Explain first, please. As I spoke, Mike stuttered out an explanation. Apparently, he tried to switch the bride to Ellie and continue the wedding. However, Tom appeared, took the microphone from the host, and boldly asked Ellie, "We're not divorced yet, and you plan to marry your affair partner?" Mike was confused, asking, "What do you mean?" And Ellie was surprised, "Why are you here?" Listening to the story, I thought to myself, of course, it would end up like this. You knew Ellie was married? Yes, of course. Ellie was my former best friend, and Tom is my relative. I was the one who brought those two together. It's only natural I would know, right? Yes, Ellie and Tom were married, and Damien is their son. And it was also me who brought the two of them together and encouraged them to date. This was back when I was in college. I can only ask you, Hannah. You don't have to beg, I'd be happy to introduce you to someone. When Ellie reached out to me, she asked me to introduce her to Tom. Ellie had known Tom for a long time, apparently, he was her first love. She hadn't forgotten about him and begged me to make the introduction. So, I contacted Tom, and since he was single, I introduced him to Ellie. Hannah, listen. I'm pregnant with Tom's child. Not long after they started dating, Ellie got pregnant. As a result, Ellie and Tom decided to get married while still students. At the time, I was overjoyed at the marriage of two people I respected and offered my blessings. Congratulations! Are you having a wedding? Sort of. But since it's a shotgun wedding and we're students, we're planning something small, just for family. Oh, but Hannah, since you're Cupid here, you're invited. So, I was invited, but Mike, who I had just started dating at the time, wasn't. Moreover, Ellie, wanting to keep her student pregnancy somewhat private, had sworn me to secrecy, so I never told him. That's why Mike didn't know. But even if you were invited to their home, it doesn't feel like they're married. Well, you wouldn't normally be house hunting. Plus, you seem to head straight for the bedroom. What? Mike was clearly shaken by my words. How did you know that? Tom told me. Actually, what Tom told me that day was about Ellie and Mike's affair. Just as Tom realized the truth, he learned about my marriage to Mike. He came to my family home right away to inform us, asking my mom to call me. That's not true. We'll be seeking alimony. I told him, cutting off his protests and hanging up the phone. Then, I sighed deeply. Well done. Thank you. I'm really exhausted. I replied to my mom, and then Damien, who had been playing in the kids' space, came running up to me. Are you tired, Hannah? Are you okay? I'll pat your back to make you feel better. Saying so, he climbed onto my lap and stretched out his hands desperately to pat my back. My mom and I were both soothed by his actions. I'm sorry, Hannah. My mom murmured as she watched Damien head back to the play area. I looked at my mom's face. It's because I was always so busy with work, I made you feel lonely. Maybe that's why things turned out this way, because of all you had to put up with. That's not true. You raised me well. Indeed, there were many times I had to endure being away from my mom. But that's a different issue. It was my lack of judgment. Yeah, maybe I need to be a bit more discerning. My mom sighed, and I gave a wry smile. Thank you for looking after Damien. Shortly after, we rejoined Tom and went back to our family home. With Damien napping after playing so much, we had a leisurely tea. Then, the doorbell rang. I'll go check it out. After a few minutes, my mom returned. Hannah! Tom! Listen to me! Mike and Ellie barged in, looking flustered. We coldly told the agitated couple, Damien is sleeping, so keep it down. We then left Damien with my mom and moved to another room. The only one I truly love is Hannah. And I love Tom. That was, not serious. Right, it was just meant as a joke. They pleaded with us, showing their ugly true colors. We looked at them coldly. You two were dating back in high school, weren't you? When I told them that, both of their bodies stiffened. Right after hearing the truth from Tom, I contacted another friend who had attended the wedding. And had gone to the same high school. I heard you two were quite affectionate in front of everyone at school. Do you even have a sense of shame? I said, making them hang their heads. The two of them, who dated in high school, had a big fight right before graduation over their future colleges. Ellie wanted Mike to choose a lower-ranking university to be with her, to which Mike said, that's absolutely impossible, prioritizing himself. And so, they broke up after the fight. Later on, Mike met me, and Ellie met Tom. Hearing that story made me remember something. Ellie and I had grown up like sisters, sharing everything. Even the boyfriends we had in middle school. When I told her about a boy who asked me out and how we started dating smoothly. A few days later, that boy dumped me and became your boyfriend. That's, well. And it's always been your whims that were prioritized, hasn't it? Being together meant clashing opinions at times. However, it was always me who gave in, so her whims, not my opinions, were what mattered. I never minded, so I didn't think much of it. But apparently, to others, Ellie appeared as a selfish girl. And then, behind my back, you called me a poor kid from a single-parent family. Is that true? I asked, and Ellie looked away. It seemed unable to come up with an excuse. It's not just Ellie. Mike, you also looked down on me, didn't you? That's, well. Mike appeared kind on the surface. However, there were odd things about him. Where to go, what to eat, his opinion always came first. Moreover, I was the one making all the reservations. And yet, whenever there's a problem, it's all my fault. I had managed to deal with it without feeling particularly troubled, so I had let it go. As I spoke matter-of-factly, the two turned pale. "I'm truly sorry. I'll change for sure, please forgive me," Mike said, prostrating himself. Ellie followed suit, also getting down on her knees. Seeing the two of them like this, I sighed. I must have been taken for granted. Now I understand. Neither of them is truly remorseful. They're just trying to appeal to us to avoid paying damages, hoping we'll somehow forgive them. I'm breaking off the engagement with Mike. So, go ahead and get married without worry, I told them, causing both to turn pale and tremble. Then, Tom stepped forward. "Damien isn't my child, is he?" At those words, Ellie's body jerked in shock. Despite her glamorous appearance, Ellie had a reputation for being pure and innocent. She used that to her advantage, hopping from one man to another. And Damien was also one of those men's child, not related to Tom by blood. After learning about your affair, I did a DNA test. The results denied any parental relationship between me and Damien. When I confronted you about it, you ran away, which was quite troublesome. Driven by anger, Tom confronted Ellie, which resulted in her fleeing. Following his confrontation, Ellie fled and has been avoiding Tom ever since, refusing to discuss the matter. And that's what led to the incident at the wedding. As for that pregnancy, I'm not even sure if it's real. The pregnancy is real, Ellie hastily claimed. Well, I guess so. The camera caught you saying, "I'm pregnant, what should we do?" Tom's mention of camera made them go beyond pale to white-faced. In fact, Tom's house is equipped with surveillance cameras. However, they were only regularly checked when Damien was younger. Now, they just record without much review. When I checked them after a long time, I found the affair recorded. Ellie had discussed her pregnancy and crashing the wedding on camera. Thus, we were able to plan our strategy in advance. The two trembled violently at Tom's words. Then, Tom handed Ellie the divorce papers. "I'm divorcing you. I'll take custody of Damien, and of course, I'll be demanding alimony. I'll also be claiming compensation for breaking off the engagement," I announced following Tom. Despite their pleas for us to reconsider, both of us refused. "Go ahead and get married without any worries. You'll never find happiness anyway." But enough now. Just then, my mom burst into the room with force. "I won't forgive anyone who hurts my precious daughter. Get out of here now." Overwhelmed by my mom's intensity, the two scurried away. Watching them leave, we burst into laughter. What a pathetic sight. Really. After a good laugh, I turned back to Tom. "What will you do now, Tom?" "I guess I'll have to move out. I don't want to stay in that place, so I'm planning to live in a monthly rental for a while," Tom said with a troubled smile. Though everything went according to plan, there wasn't enough time. So they couldn't arrange a new place to live. His parents had passed away a few years ago, and since the family home was sold, someone else lives there now. "Oh, then you should come stay here," my mom suggested out of the blue. Surprised, we all turned to look at her. Damien is fond of both me and Hannah. So, why not live here together? "Hannah, you're about to start remote work, aren't you?" At my mom's words, I nodded. Indeed, my company was introducing remote work, and I was scheduled to work from home after my holiday. "You wouldn't want to stay in a house with that man, right?" At that, I nodded again. Indeed, it would be more efficient for both me and Tom to live in this house. We looked at each other, and then bowed our heads to my mom, thanking her for taking us in. "Dad? What's happening?" Damien, rubbing his sleepy eyes, came waking up. He tilted his head at us, bowing to my mom. "Damien, from today, we're going to live in this house." "With Hannah and Grandma?" "Yes, together." At Tom's words, Damien beamed with a smile. By the way, Damien calls my mom Grandma. He's that fond of her. "Please take care of us, Damien." "Yeah." Despite the hardships, Damien's smile made it all seem worthwhile. After that, we moved out of our respective homes and into my family home. I was held back by Mike and Tom by Ellie, but we both ignored them.
Hannah, we're best friends, right? I've always been there for you.
Ellie called me, crying and pleading. The old me might have felt sorry for her. But not anymore. I don't consider you my best friend anymore. And it wasn't you who took care of me, it was your mother. With that, I hung up. Cuteness leads to 100-fold hatred, exactly right. The more I had trusted her before, the more insignificant she became the moment she betrayed me. Now, it's time for her to atone. Thinking so, I blocked Ellie's contact. Later, I received apologies from Ellie's mother and my in-laws. The two of them were thoroughly reprimanded by their parents. I've made sure to spread the word about this incident. My mom runs a business. She had shared the story with her clients. As a result, it seems both were fired from their jobs. They're probably struggling quite a bit after being sued for damages by us. Yeah, Ellie did work, but she was never good at her job. Ellie had tried to claim custody, but after accumulating debt and being disowned by her parents, I prefer Dad over Mom. Because Mom never pays attention to me, Damien's words led to Tom being granted custody. In reality, Ellie had been neglecting Damien. Hannah, when you were a child, we took care of you so much. Now it's your turn to take care of me. She would say, sometimes leaving Damien with me. During the weekdays, Ellie's mother took care of him, and on weekends, it was me and my mom. Tom was busy with work, believing Ellie's words, I'll take good care of Damien, so you focus on your job, leading him to work hard every day from early morning till late at night. Recently, realizing this was not the way to live, he started spending more time with Damien. That decision seemed to have made all the difference. By the way, what will happen to that child? I was concerned about the child in Ellie's womb. I couldn't see her being capable of raising a child. And Mike was just as self-centered. That child will be taken care of by Ellie's mother, who will entrust the child to a relative. Unlike us, Ellie's mother truly was a close friend of my mom. I trust her, so I'm sure the child will be happy. Relieved, I sighed. Then, Tom took my hand. Hannah. If you're okay with it, would you go out with me? What? His sudden confession made me stare at him in surprise. Tom seemed a bit embarrassed. My first love was always you, Hannah. It turns out Tom had always had feelings for me. But he suppressed them after I introduced him to Ellie, and they started dating. But I won't hold back anymore. Please, go out with me. Soon after, we started dating. My mom seemed to sense it and watched us with a fond smile. Hey, Damien. What would you do if I said I wanted to be your mom?
Hannah being my mom? I'd be really happy.
Damien's words encouraged us, and now we are considering marriage.
I'll definitely make you happy, Hannah. I'm looking forward to it.
I replied with a smile to Tom's words. Since then, we've gotten married and become one family.
Hey, Mama Hannah. What's up, Damien?
One day, Damien looked up at me a bit shyly. I found his gesture adorable and asked while patting his head.
You know, I want a little brother or sister.
His words made me blush this time. When I told Tom, he blushed just the same. Later, we decided to fulfill Damien's wish. Sometime after. There's a baby in here, right?
Yes, that's right. Here's where your little brother or sister is.
I told Damien, now pregnant with Tom's child. Damien, imitating me, gently stroked my belly. Truly, Tom's child.
My child is in there.
And Damien, he is our child too. I know. From now on, it'll be me, Hannah, Mom, and 2 kids, a happy family of 5. Tom said, and I nodded in agreement. I do my best for my family and me from now on. I pledged in my heart. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Give me a $5,000 baby shower gift. We're besties, right? Kelly, my best friend who I hadn't heard from in 3 years, suddenly got in touch. I was absolutely flabbergasted by her words.
What? You got married?
Yeah, I did. As I asked in surprise, Kelly replied cheerfully. I was about to congratulate her when she said, actually, the reason you guys never had kids must be because Michelle lacks sex appeal, freezing. Simon, my ex-husband, and they had a child together. Michelle? You're coming, right? Kelly's triumphant voice reached me as I fell silent on the phone. There were so many things I wanted to say, like when did this happen, or you never even bothered to contact me before, but I knew responding would play right into Kelly's hands. So, I took a deep breath and calmly responded. Sure. I'll come with my husband, the lawyer. And so, John and I headed to her house. Little did anyone imagine that Kelly reaching out would lead to such upheaval in her and Simon's lives. My name is Michelle. I was born and raised in a rural area of Kansas. I spent my school years there before moving to New York for work. Living alone in an unfamiliar place from a young age, I remember feeling very lonely without any friends. After work, it became my routine to call friends and family back home. Even years later, I never really got used to the environment and had no acquaintances outside of work. Then, a turning point came when I visited a coworker's house and met a man who was a friend of her husband. His name was Simon. Born and raised in New York, he worked as a doctor at a university hospital. Simon, being the same age as me, seemed very sophisticated and attractive to someone from the countryside like me. Simon took a liking to me as well, and soon after we met, we started dating and got married in the year we both turned 30. The first person I reported my engagement to was Kelly, my best friend since elementary school. We had gone to the same schools through middle and high school, essentially best friends. Kelly was the only child of a local politician, a pampered princess. She inherited her father's leadership qualities and decisiveness, but also had a tendency to always think she was the best, for better or worse. I, on the other hand, was indecisive and lacked confidence. That's why I always admired Kelly, who was confident and always took the lead. Even after moving and not seeing each other as much, my feelings of her being a precious friend didn't change after moving to New York. That's why she was the first person I called to announce my news.
Kelly? Guess what? I'm getting married. What? No way. To that guy, Simon, was it?
I had, of course, talked to Kelly about Simon. Though they had never met, she knew his name and occupation. Yeah, that's right.
Marrying a doctor, huh? You hit the jackpot. That's amazing.
Kelly exclaimed excitedly upon hearing my news, which made me laugh unintentionally. I laughed because I misunderstood her excitement as being happy for my marriage. It's not like that. And besides, doctors don't make that much money yet, and he doesn't have much savings, so it's not really marrying into money. But that's okay. I'm not marrying for money. That's why I casually denied Kelly's words. However, my response seemed to have struck a nerve with Kelly. She went silent for a moment, then said coldly, "What? Is that some kind of brag? Pretending to be modest? Oh, it's pure love, money doesn't matter?"
What?
Besides, you've been saying you wanted to come back here, but you never did. And now you're marrying someone from there, it's like you've looked down on us country folks all along. Her tone was not warm or joking. Rather, it felt like she was looking down on me, which made me rush to respond.
That's not it at all. I really did want to come back, and I never thought I'd end up marrying someone here.
But that's what happened. You got carried away thinking you're someone now that you're with a city guy. You'd have made a better impression if you were happy about marrying into money.
That's not.
Despite just announcing my marriage, Kelly seemed upset, and I didn't know what to do. Enjoy your fancy wedding then. I'll be looking forward to the invitation. With those words, Kelly hung up, leaving me speechless. Did I say something so wrong? I immediately tried calling back, but she didn't answer. Even my texts went unanswered. After getting in touch with Kelly, I intended to share my marriage news with other friends, but I completely lost the mood for it. However, I couldn't bring myself to not invite Kelly to the wedding. Our parents have been acquaintances for many years. And besides, it wouldn't make sense to invite all other childhood friends but leave out Kelly, my best friend. Despite reaching out to her multiple times after that phone call, I never got a reply. The wedding invitation was returned without any message, only a checkmark indicating her attendance, which was a simple gesture. Appalled by Kelly's immaturity, I planned to apologize at the wedding for my poor communication and decided it would be best to naturally distance myself from her moving forward. Then came the wedding day. Kelly showed up in an extravagant outfit, acting as if our previous conversation never happened, and cheerily approached me with her friends.
Look at you! Simon is quite the looker. I was imagining some unsociable geek since you said he was a doctor.
She blurted out, leaving me dumbfounded. Simon, who was by my side, laughed upon hearing her. Well, you must be Kelly, right? Thanks. Take good care of Michelle for me, and feel free to visit us in New York anytime, he said, surprising me yet again. Despite being aware of the situation between Kelly and me, including my plans to keep a distance, Simon inviting her to stay in touch made it impossible to maintain that distance.
Really? Thank you. I've been looking forward to meeting Simon, and I'm counting on you too,
Kelly said, making herself overly familiar with a light touch. Kelly's behavior made me uncomfortable. But I couldn't say anything that might ruin the wedding day and managed to force a smile through the situation. Kelly's solo performance continued. She went from one of Simon's doctor colleagues to another, making her presence known. From the head table, I watched nervously as her actions could easily be misconstrued as being on the hunt for men, which was particularly embarrassing considering some guests were Simon's seniors and bosses. Having my friend act inappropriately towards my husband's colleagues was the last thing I wanted on our wedding day. I was drained by the end of it. But the thought of not seeing Kelly for a while brought me a bit of peace. However, my peace was short-lived.
Michelle! I'm here for a visit.
Kelly started coming to our house once a month, insisting on staying for at least 2 nights each time.
Simon, you're so funny.
It's fun for me too when Kelly visits. They would start their drinking sessions, leaving me to clean up afterwards since I don't handle alcohol well. Naturally, preparing snacks and drinks also became my responsibility since Kelly wouldn't bring anything. After a year of this routine, I expressed my feelings to Simon. I'm thinking about asking Kelly not to come over anymore. It's a burden on you to always be entertaining, and honestly, preparing the guest room and shopping is hard on me. To which Simon responded, It's rare for a friend to come visit from her hometown just to see you. Don't say things like that. I'm okay with it, so let's keep welcoming her. It seemed Simon had forgotten about my desire to distance ourselves from Kelly, making me feel like the villain. Despite several discussions about my concerns regarding Kelly with Simon, he never took my concerns seriously. I started feeling sick a few days before Kelly's monthly visits, and I began to dislike both her presence and myself for feeling this way. Our marriage, though generally happy, was strained by arguments over Kelly. One day, when Simon was out, Kelly was at our place. We ended up drinking together in the evening.
Non-alcoholic again?
You're not pregnant, right?
Just drink.
Yeah, but I'm not good with alcohol.
So, no pregnancy yet?
Kelly asked abruptly. Her nonchalant manner of broaching such a sensitive topic forced me to laugh it off. Yeah. We're hoping.
Maybe you're not attractive enough as a woman? You better hurry up before it's too late for a safe pregnancy,
she said, laughing as if it was a joke. Annoyed by her rudeness and the implication that attractiveness had anything to do with it, I snapped back.
What about you? You're the same age and not even married, yet you're quick to judge others?
Huh? What's that tone? You think you're better than me because you left the countryside?
I didn't say that.
Without anyone to stop us, our argument escalated. Kelly, as if ready to pounce, slammed the table. Don't get too cocky just because your husband is a doctor. If you had married someone with a higher income, like a congressman or a lawyer, like my dad, maybe then. But you used to mock Simon for his low income.
That's not.
It was then Simon returned home. At the worst possible time. He looked at me suspiciously, frowning.
Is what Kelly just said true? You've been mocking me for my low income?
Yes, that's right. She even said you couldn't save money. Kelly chimed in, and Simon turned his glare towards me, believing her words.
It's a misunderstanding. Yes, when Kelly accused me of being after money, I did say your income wasn't that high yet, but it wasn't a complaint. I never meant it in a bad way.
Even so, that would hurt Simon's pride, wouldn't it? Can't you understand that? Kelly interjected, obviously trying to side with Simon and pit him against me. I ignored Kelly. Clearing up the misunderstanding with Simon and repairing our relationship was more important to me. Simon was silent for a moment, then sighed. But honestly, we can't say our relationship has been going well. Like Kelly said, my pride is hurt. We need to talk about our relationship.
That's not.
Next to a smirking Kelly, I sincerely apologized to Simon. I told him I didn't fall for him because he was a doctor and that my feelings for him were genuine. However, Simon only said he was disillusioned with me. Eventually, we ended up divorcing. I tried to prevent it, but Simon's feelings wouldn't change. So, for his new beginning, I reluctantly accepted the divorce. 3 years had passed since our divorce was finalized. I had no contact with Simon or Kelly during that time. Some friends asked why I wasn't in touch with Kelly either, but after witnessing the crisis in my marriage and seeing Kelly side with Simon, I couldn't bring myself to contact her. Then one day, a call came from Kelly's number, which I had saved in my phone. Hesitantly, I answered. How have you been? I was taken aback by Kelly's unchanged demeanor after 3 years. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Give me a $5,000 baby shower gift. We're besties, right? She said, shocking me.
What? You got married?
Yeah, I did. Kelly replied cheerfully. As I was about to congratulate her, she said, actually, the reason you guys never had kids must be because Michelle lacks sex appeal, freezing me in my tracks.
Huh?
I, and even Simon, are happy to see Michelle after so long. That's when I realized. Kelly had somehow ended up marrying Simon and they had a child together. Michelle? You're coming, right? Kelly's triumphant voice reached me as I fell silent on the phone. There were so many things I wanted to say, like when did this happen, or you never even bothered to contact me before, but I knew responding would play right into Kelly's hands. So, I took a deep breath and calmly responded. Sure. I'll come with my husband, the lawyer. What? So you married Simon, meaning you're living here now? Oh. Yeah, we're living in New York. Great. Then give me your address. I'll come visit. I continued, taking Kelly by surprise with my response. After getting her address and avoiding further questions, I quietly ended the call. A month later, on the weekend, I decided to visit the address Kelly gave me. I hadn't asked when the baby was born, but if she contacted me right after the birth, the baby must still be a newborn. Considering it might be a difficult time, I waited about a month before visiting. On the way there, I spoke to my husband, John, who was driving. Sorry for the trouble, especially on your day off. John shook his head with a smile. No worries at all. Actually, I had remarried about a year ago. We met through a popular dating app. John might not be considered conventionally handsome, but he's a very kind person. We hit it off right away after meeting. After we started dating, I learned about John's job. I was surprised. Turns out, his job was as a lawyer. John had left the profession and income fields blank because he wanted to meet someone who saw him for who he was, not for his job. I did wonder why those fields were blank, but sometimes people leave them empty. So I didn't think much of it.
Do you want me to put the address in the GPS? Do you know where it is?
When we stopped at a red light, John, who was driving, asked. I took out the note to check the address and caught my breath.
We don't need the GPS. I'll guide you. Oh. All right then.
The car started moving slowly again. I looked at the address once more. Without a doubt, it was the address of the apartment where Simon and I used to live. No wonder I remembered it after hearing it just once. At that moment, I hadn't realized because my mind was full, but thinking about going back to that house made me a bit nervous. When we arrived at Kelly's house, John and I entered together. Nice to meet you.
I'm Kelly, Michelle's best friend.
Kelly greeted John with a smile at the entrance.
Wait, you got remarried? I'm honestly shocked. Why didn't you tell me? I was holding back thinking it'd be wrong for me to be the only one happy.
Kelly laughed. Holding back? Did she feel a bit guilty for marrying Simon and having a bit of happiness? If that was the case, I wish she had just told me. I asked with a wry smile.
When did you get married, Kelly? I had no idea you two were a thing. About a year and a half ago? We ran into each other by chance.
Kelly said without making eye contact. Entering my old home after a long time felt strange. It seemed Simon wasn't home. Which I was honestly relieved about since I didn't want to meet him. Kelly was feeding the baby milk and asking John what he liked about me. I thought it was none of her business, but since John answered politely, I didn't join their conversation and instead glanced at a shelf. There were many photos of Kelly and Simon. Among them were photos I had taken when Kelly used to visit every month. There were also photos of them going out together and of a pregnant Kelly. Looking at them, I wondered how, if they had only reconnected a year and a half ago, there were no gaps in the photos. There were photos that looked like they were taken in spring, in summer with short sleeves, in fall, and in winter looking cold. And the hair color changes. Considering the photos I took over 3 years ago, there seemed to be no year and a half gap. Could it be that they were dating even while I was married to Simon? Such doubts arose. And as if confirming those doubts, memories of their closeness and atmosphere came flooding back. Once I started thinking about it, I couldn't see it any other way. I slowly turned around. And I recognized the look Kelly gave John, filled with anger. Like an animal that had found its prey. Worried she might try to take John from me too, I confronted Kelly with a stern voice.
Kelly, don't tell me you stole Simon from me?
At my words, Kelly visibly shifted her gaze. Then, unexpectedly, she burst into laughter.
You've been looking at those photos and came up with that story? Don't laugh, answer me. To think you didn't notice until now, you're really foolish. But, thanks to that, Michelle, you got to meet John, right? It turned out well, didn't it?
Kelly admitted it casually. I was furious, but seeing the small baby in Kelly's arms, I couldn't bring myself to scold her and bit my lip instead.
Besides, in the end, you preferred a lawyer over a doctor, right? That's why you divorced Simon so easily.
Her words made me incredibly frustrated. I never chose Simon or John based on their professions. Meeting John was indeed a happy turn, but that's a different story. After divorcing Simon, I went through a really tough time, couldn't eat, and blamed myself for what went wrong. And to think, it was because Kelly was involved with him all along, they were mocking me together. I held back tears as Kelly laughed triumphantly.
John, this girl, she loves chasing after rich men. You're young, you should find someone else. No, that's not true.
I looked at John pleadingly. Then John murmured with a thoughtful expression. I see.
I think I understand the situation now.
I was shocked by his words. Thinking John was disgusted with me. In contrast, Kelly's lips curled up in a smirk. Reminiscent of the day she sided with Simon against me. But John stated clearly. So, Kelly, you've been involved with Michelle's ex-husband since they were still married? That's right. It's really dumb she didn't notice. Kelly laughed, and I snapped back.
No way!
Don't be stupid. This was why Kelly had contacted me. 3 years had passed. They thought what they had done to me had essentially been erased. John laughed. Kelly, you seem well informed. Of course I am. It's Michelle who's the fool here. She could file a civil lawsuit for the psychological damage. Please reflect on how you've hurt my wife. Michelle, let's go. Kelly turned pale at John's words. Beside a flustered Kelly, John gave me a reassuring smile. Relieved that John hadn't fallen for Kelly's manipulation and remained on my side until the end, I wiped away my tears. The kind and gentle John had been desperately thinking of how to heal my wounds and went through with the process of lawsuit. At the same time, my phone was incessantly ringing. Calls from Kelly and an unknown number. When I answered once, hearing Simon's voice, I immediately hung up. Thanks to that, we also got Simon's number, making the paperwork smooth. On another day, we visited their house again. These are the documents related to the process. We've brought them for your review. It was a Sunday, so Simon was home too. As soon as we arrived, both of them apologized.
Michelle, I'm really sorry. Please withdraw the lawsuit.
Kelly suddenly became docile, apologizing.
I kept quiet for your sake. I thought, it's something we could take to our graves. Yeah, that's right. I only told you because you seemed happy.
Simon, too, as if they had done nothing wrong, continued with their uninteresting excuses. So, you admit you're at fault?
Of course.
Then, pay the alimony. But they fell silent at those words. The apology was meaningless without action. John began to explain the alimony. Anyway, we'll be claiming $50,000 from Simon to Michelle, and $50,000 from Kelly to Michelle, making it a total of $100,000.
$100,000? There's no way we can pay that.
The amount John mentioned sent them into a frenzy. Without changing his expression, John calmly explained the reasoning behind the amount. Still, they kept complaining, that's too high. We have a child. If you had any decency, you wouldn't demand such an amount from a family that has to raise a child. If they had any decency, they wouldn't have interfered with a friend's marriage or pursued a friend's husband. Despite their self-righteous ranting, John, for the first time, raised his voice to silence them. That's how serious your actions were. All this talk of taking it to the grave, how foolish. You were just overcome by lust. Don't make excuses. With that, the two were effectively silenced. Next to him, I felt profoundly grateful to John. All right. Simon murmured quietly.
Wait, Simon. Are you serious? Where are we supposed to get that kind of money?
I'll figure out my part. You can borrow from your parents.
What? There's no way I can do that.
As they started to argue among themselves, it was clear that Simon had the income as a doctor. Kelly, on the other hand, had no income. Though she might have worked while living in her hometown, the cost of her frequent flights to visit us must have been substantial, and it was unclear when she had quit her job or if she was the type to save money. Especially since her father is a congressman. Even if they have the money, he's not the type to pay off his daughter's infidelity alimony. We'll be leaving now. Please contact us when you're ready. John prompted, and I also left the house. After closing the door, Simon's angry shouts of "Why did you tell Michelle?" could be heard. There was no sign of remorse. Hearing that, John and I laughed as we left. We walked to a nearby coin parking lot to get into our car when we heard.
Wait, please!
Simon's voice stopped us. Get in the car first. I nodded and got into the car. The window was slightly open, allowing me to hear their conversation. I wanted to close it since I didn't want to hear anything, but sitting in the passenger seat, I couldn't start the engine, so I just sat quietly.
Listen, you know my situation, right? Please, do something.
Simon pleaded, making me look up. That's a different issue. Suggesting they knew each other, which I found odd. But it felt like I shouldn't be listening to such a private conversation. However, I couldn't help overhearing it.
How much do I have left? Tell me.
In a place like this. What if someone hears us?
Just tell me. My life is on the line here.
Simon pressed John urgently. John whispered something back. So, $40,000 to Amy and $22,000 left in installments to Mina. And now $60,000 to Michelle on top of that. There's no way I can pay. I was stunned by Simon's words. And to think you were Michelle's ex-husband. It's only a matter of time before Kelly finds out and demands alimony.
Please, don't tell Kelly.
Of course, I have a duty of confidentiality. But can you keep hiding it forever? Listening to John, Simon was distressed. Witnessing this, I couldn't help but laugh. It seemed Simon had been committing adultery repeatedly. Though they say fools and their money are soon parted, the way Simon has been throwing around his money has to be the height of folly. What a mess. You should learn from them.
I know.
Then, take care not to let Kelly find out. If you don't value her, you'll lose both your family and your money. John left those words behind and headed towards the car. Wait. Simon called, but John didn't stop. Simon, who made eye contact with me as I got into the car, froze as if petrified. Probably thinking his pride couldn't stand showing me such a pathetic sight. But it was already pitiful enough. The alimony to Michelle cannot be reduced by even a penny. Please take care. With those words, Simon finally slumped against a concrete wall, seemingly contemplating his next move. Hopefully, he'll use the brain he wasted on hiding his infidelity to somehow alleviate the damage he's caused to the victims. Sorry to keep you waiting. John got back into the car with a smile. I just greeted him with a smile in return. Thanks to John, I was able to receive the alimony from Simon and Kelly. Kelly had asked Simon to cover her portion of the alimony, but Simon had no means to do so. Eventually, she had to turn to her parents. Kelly's parents, of course, knew Simon was my ex-husband, but probably never imagined he was the cause of our divorce. They were furious when they found out the whole truth, especially since Kelly had lied about reuniting with Simon only a year and a half ago. Kelly's mom cried, saying it was her fault for spoiling her too much. Her dad said he wouldn't let her cross their doorstep again. It's clear that even with decent parents, a child might not turn out well. And they also found out about Simon's ongoing alimony hell. Though it's odd to condemn someone else's affair when you've had one yourself, I hope Kelly can understand a bit of how I felt. Simon chose to rebuild his marriage with Kelly, despite his infidelity and their child. With Kelly's pride and Simon's unchanging habits. I just hope their child grows up well, thinking of it as someone else's concern. After settling down, John and I went on a trip to a southern island with a view of the sea. A place that seemed to heal all the hardships and wounds of the past. I'm of an age where having children might not be possible. And while I regret missing my chance, meeting John has been a great happiness. I thanked John again. If I hadn't met you, I'm sure I'd still be alone, at the bottom of a pit of despair. Meeting John has brought me true happiness. Thank you for coming into my life. I wanted to be with you, Michelle, because you saw me for who I am, not what I am. Thank you for meeting me. Let's continue to look forward to our future together. John said this to me. I thought about how I want to cherish our current happiness and see as many different scenes with him as possible in the future.